Call to order our city council meeting for July 13th, 2026. If you're able, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Rachel Holteen.
Present.
Dan Larson.
Here.
Kathleen Martell.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
Mike Okada.
Here.
Patrick Quinn.
Present, Madam Clerk.
Jenny Snell.
Present.
Susan Wood.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilors, in your packet, we had study session notes for June 15th, 2026, City Council meeting minutes for June 22nd, 2026, and special study session notes for June 22nd, 2026. Do we have any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, thank you, Clerk, for your hard work on all those. We'll go to approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll go to proclamations and ceremony. If I could have Mary Hester join me up here, please. Very welcome. I have the honor tonight to give the Mayor's Monarch Pledge for July 13th, 2026. Whereas the monarch butterfly is an iconic North American species whose multi-generational migration and metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly has captured the imagination of millions of Americans. And whereas both the western and eastern monarch populations have seen significant declines, with less than 1% of the western monarch population remaining, while the eastern population has fallen by as much as 90%. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge recognizes that human health ultimately depends on the well-functioning ecosystems and the biodiverse regions, and biodiverse regions can better support food production, healthy soil, and air quality, and can foster healthy connections between humans and wildlife. And whereas every resident of Wheat Ridge can make a difference for monarch by planting native milkweed and nectar plants to provide habitat for monarch and pollinators in locations where people live, work, learn, and play. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge has committed to a future of sustainable environmental outcomes with programs such as Sustainable Wheat Ridge and Regenerate Wheat Ridge. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Corey Stites, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and Wheat Ridge City Council, call upon the City of Wheat Ridge to join us in recognizing July 13th, 2026 as the Mayor's Monarch Pledge Day in the City of Wheat Ridge, and encourage all residents to participate in community activities and support and celebrate the Monarch Conversation, in witness thereof on this 13th day of July, 2026.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll keep it super short, but just wanted to say that we're really excited to participate in this program again for another year. And mostly just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for all of your ongoing commitment to our sustainability work over the years and continuing now. So thank you.
If I can have the Parks and Rec staff join me up here, and our Parks and Rec commissioners, and I think this is our audience. And Booster the Rooster. We have a proclamation for Parks and Recreation Month, and we want to thank all of our Parks and Rec staff for being here tonight. Whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving and the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature while positively impacting mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of local businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide the place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Corey Stites, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council do hereby declare July 2026 as Parks and Recreation Month, in witness thereof on this 13th day of July 2026. Would you like to say something? All right.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you who have been here for a while, you know this is my favorite day of the year, so bear with me. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and members of the Wheat Ridge community. July is Parks and Recreation Month, and while this month gives us an opportunity to celebrate parks and recreation, the truth is our team celebrates this work every single day. Since this time last year, we've opened the green at 38th and completed nearly a full year of operations, advanced the Keep Anderson Afloat campaign, completed the Panorama Tennis Court renovation, finished the Tabor Lake Trail project, continued growing Wheat Ridge's tree canopy, launched exciting new events in aquatics, began the development of the Randall Park Neighborhood Farm, secured important grant funding, expanded volunteer opportunities, successfully completed our CAPRA reaccreditation, and so much more. Looking at that list, you might think we've added another 20 employees. We haven't. We just have a team that refuses to believe that good enough is good enough. Those accomplishments don't happen because of one person. They happen because of an incredible team of dedicated employees, volunteers, commissioners, partners, and supporters who care deeply about this community. I'd like to begin by recognizing our Parks and Recreation Commissioners, Chair Andy Rasmussen, who is not here this evening, Vice Chair Ryan Hester, please wave for the crowd, Kimberly Cross, Pat Severa, Kathy Weisbrot couldn't be here this evening, but Mark Duty is here, Ralph Haben, and then, of course, our Council Representative, Pat Quinn. Thank you, Pat. And our newest member, Kelsey Robb, who is also not here. Thank you for your leadership, your thoughtful guidance, your willingness to ask tough questions, and your unwavering support of Parks and Recreation. Serving on a commission is often behind-the-scenes commitment, but your impact to this community is significant, and we truly appreciate everything you do. Now, if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I promise this is my favorite part every year. We have an incredible team of employees, from lifeguards to horticulture technicians, preschool teachers, to parks maintenance professionals, customer service staff, to recreation leaders, graphic designers, to grant writers, and everything in between. We have full-time employees, variable staff, and seasonal employees, and every single one plays an important role in making Wheat Ridge the incredible community that it is. I'd like to personally recognize those who are here with us this evening. And again, just wave when I say your name. Joe Beezer is one of our outstanding Parks Operations Supervisors. In addition to making sure every park on the west side of Wheat Ridge is looking its absolute best, Joe also serves as the president of the Lee and Baugh Ditch Company. Whether it's an irrigation emergency or a community concern, you can always count on Joe to respond promptly, professionally, and with a calm demeanor. David Wright is actually our newest team member, stepping into the role of grant specialist just last week. David brings a wealth of grant writing experience and somehow in only a matter of days has already hit the ground running. We're excited to see the ideas and opportunities he'll bring to Wheat Ridge. Becky Blazer is our Operations Support Tech 3 for the Parks, Forestry, and Open Space Division. Becky keeps everything running behind the scenes, from purchase orders and budgeting to supplies and logistics. She's truly the glue that holds the division together, and she somehow manages to keep everything moving with a smile on her face. YY Dennis is our fabulous garden coordinator, from overseeing programming and operations at Happiness Gardens to leading development of the Randall Park Neighborhood Farm. YY pours her heart into everything she does. She loves sharing her passion for gardening with our community, and of course, she rarely works alone, thanks to her canine assistant, Dende, also known as Piggy, who has become a pretty popular member of the team herself. Sarah Miller, our aquatic supervisor, is one of the hardest working people in this department. Running an aging aquatics facility is not for the faint of heart, yet Sarah tackles every challenge with determination and creativity. She keeps our facilities operating, troubleshoots issues at lightning speed, recruits and retains an outstanding aquatics team, and somehow keeps morale high through it all. And if that wasn't enough, Sarah also serves as an at-large member of the Colorado Parks and Recreation Association board. Beth June is our fearless events and volunteer coordinator. Beth has shown us what's possible when you pair an incredible community space like the Green at 38th with someone who can dream big and execute even bigger. Whether she's planning events, coordinating volunteers, training staff, solving last-minute surprises, or putting out fires, she somehow stays calm and delivers memorable experiences every single time. Her canine sidekick, Max, also serves as a Wheat Ridge employee from time to time. I have to talk about Benny Pays and Susie Anderson together because they're the definition of a leadership team. Benny, our Parks, Forestry, and Open Space Manager, and Susie, our Recreation Manager, share something really special. During our recent CAPRA reaccreditation visit, our out-of-state visitors told us that they've never experienced a department culture quite like ours. That culture doesn't happen by accident. Benny and Susie genuinely care about the people they lead. They invest in their teams, encourage professional growth, support one another, and when unexpected challenges inevitably show up, as they always do, they simply roll up their sleeves and figure it out. They are an incredible leadership team, and I couldn't be more grateful to work alongside them. Brandon Altenberg, our recently appointed Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation, is one of the most hardworking and dedicated professionals I've ever had the privilege of working with. You're all familiar with Brandon's incredible success securing grant funding for our community, but that's only part of the story. He also led our department through the extensive CAPRA reaccreditation process. He collaborates tirelessly with partners across the city and beyond, and is a kind person who's always willing to jump in and help no matter the challenge. I'm incredibly grateful for his partnership and leadership. And finally, no Parks and Recreation Month celebration would be complete without recognizing the hardest working chicken in local government, Booster the Rooster. Booster has become the face of our department, the unofficial ambassador of fun, and the favorite among residents of all ages. Whether Booster is showing up at community events, posing for photos, or simply making people smile, there's no denying the joy our feathered friend brings to Wheat Ridge. As I wrap up, and yes, I know my Parks and Recreation speech gets a little long every year, I hope you understand why. It's important to me that you get to know the people behind the projects, the trails, the parks, the pools, the gardens, the events, the grants, the volunteers, the smiles. None of those happen on their own. They happen because of this extraordinary team. I consider myself exceptionally fortunate to come to work each day alongside such a capable, compassionate, innovative, and genuinely fun people. They embody what it means to be rooted in fun, and they make our community stronger every single day. Please join me in giving them the recognition they so richly deserve. Thank you. Photo up.
Come up in front of the dais and we'll take a picture with council. Yeah. See you around. And if I can have Kelly McLaughlin join me up here. we have one more proclamation tonight for Disability Pride Month. July is Disability Pride Month, a time to celebrate the achievements, contributions, and resilience of individuals with disabilities and to promote the inclusion and acceptance and understanding of disability as a natural part of human diversity. And whereas people with disabilities make up a significant and valuable portion of our communities, and their unique perspectives, talents, and experiences enrich our society and contribute to our collective progress. And whereas Disability Pride Month provides an opportunity to recognize and honor the accomplishments of individuals with disabilities in various fields, including education, employment, arts, sports, science, and advocacy. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge acknowledges the barriers and challenges faced by individuals with disabilities, including societal attitudes, built-in architectural barriers, lack of accessibility, discrimination, and unequal opportunities. And whereas it is essential to promote a society that embraces disability as an integral and valued part of human diversity, where all individuals are treated with dignity, respect, and equality, and where barriers to participation and inclusion are eliminated. And whereas we appreciate the efforts of disability rights activists, organizations, and advocates who work tirelessly to advocate the rights, independence, and well-being of individuals with disabilities and create a more inclusive and accessible world for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Corey Stites, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, along with the Wheat Ridge City Council, formally designate the month of July as 2026 as Disability Pride Month, in witness thereof on this 13th day of July, 2026.
I don't know how anybody follows Karen. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, members of our community. I'm the ADA coordinator for the city. My name's Kelly McLaughlin, and I'm actually here representing our ADA committee. And we just want to thank you for the proclamation and for just what it means. You know, as the Mayor said, it's a celebration of people this month and their abilities and accomplishments and their perspectives and what they bring to our community. And it's a reminder that disability isn't just about curb ramps or automatic doors. It's making sure that everyone has the opportunity to be a part of our community, to access city services, and more importantly, just to feel like they belong. And so we're grateful for your commitment to making this happen, especially through your support of the ADA transition plan. So through this plan, we're making important steps in identifying where we can improve accessibility through our facilities, our parks, through our right-of-way, and it helps us ensure that we're going to make meaningful progress moving forward. And the ADA committee is just so grateful for your guys' support in this project. So we thank you for your continued commitment to accessibility and inclusion and for demonstrating those values and for really just showing that Wheat Ridge is a community that really does want to include everyone. So we're proud to be a part of this, and thank you for having us.
We will move to our public's right to speak. Residents may speak for up to 3 minutes on any agenda item not on the agenda tonight. When you come up, please spell your last name for the record. Let us know whether you live or work in Wheat Ridge. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. On the podium there are 3 lights. There's a red light. It tells you to stop. Please go ahead and wrap up your time. You've got about 30 seconds when the yellow light starts blinking there, and when the green light is going, you have about a minute and a half. We have one person signed up to speak tonight, which is Dan Kukas, and we'll let you come on up.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a while since I've spoken in public, so I'll delegate some of the speaking to others if possible. I also tend to lose my voice. Would somebody be willing to share the picture that I sent? What was the impression you got of those signs at the park? Anybody speak up? What was your impression? Oh, Kuckes, and I've lived in Wheat Ridge for about 27 years in all. Nobody had thoughts about the photo that I sent down?
Council generally doesn't respond during public
Okay.
comment.
I sent a photo down with pictures at the park, which in my opinion are very unclear. I polled 5 people, including 2 of the council members. All of them think that the sign means, all of them think that the sign means no bicycles, absolutely, but you can use a wheelchair. 100% of the people that I've polled have said that. The ordinance is maybe a little bit clearer. It says no rollerblades, skateboards, bicycle, etc., with the exception of mobility devices for persons with disabilities. Still a little bit vague, because is a bicycle a mobility device? Can a skateboard, rollerblades be a mobility device? The ADA page about mobility devices does include a lot of things that you might not think. Things like golf carts, things like, what do you call the motorized things with 4 wheels? Like a motorcycle, but with 4 wheels. And the Segways, the thing with 2 wheels that, I don't know how people don't fall off of those. The only place that I've seen that it is clear is in rootedinfun.com, which is the Parks and Rec website. And it says designated conservation area, pressure fine trail that's off limit to bikes, except those used as ADA devices. That's the only place that I've seen that it's clear. And people on the trail are frequently abusive verbally, physically threatening, sometimes with what amounts to a weapon. I've reported this to the police on a number of occasions, and I'm thinking about inviting the Adaptive Adventures, which I've discussed with my 2 council members, which is largely veterans. Some of them only have 1 leg, but still manage to ride a bicycle. And in summary, I don't think that duty of care has been fulfilled here. Duty of care is a legal and moral obligation to ensure the safety and well-being of others, requiring organizations to act with caution and prudence. The signs are absolutely not informing the public, and many of the public are violent.
Thank you.
And
Can wrap it up, please.
I think that's it.
Thank you. We have nobody else signed to speak in chambers. We do have somebody signed to speak online. We have a Brandon George.
Mr. Mayor, he's not online, unfortunately. Thank you.
Then we will go on to agenda item number 1, which is our, Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate people coming out and speaking tonight. If there are materials that are being handed out, I'd appreciate that those are handed to the clerk and that they're distributed to council at the point of the speaker's speaking points, because it's a little confusing to us when we sit down and we have pieces of paper that aren't attributed to anybody and we don't know what they're in connection to. So in the future, if we can please have those go to the clerk, and then the clerk can distribute those to council when the speaker is speaking. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 1, which is our consent agenda. Councilor Wood, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1A, resolution number 31, 2026, a resolution amending the 2026 fiscal year open space fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $16,313 for the purpose of accepting grant funds from the Jefferson County Climate Action Plan Food Resilience Grant Program. At issue is that the city of Wheat Ridge was awarded $16,313 from the Jefferson County Climate Action Plan Food Resilience Program. The funding will support the Randall Park Neighborhood Farm Project. A supplemental budget appropriation is required to allow for the funds to be used for the project. Consent item number 1B is resolution number 32, 2026. This is a resolution amending the 2026 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $40,341 to accept a grant from the Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services in the total amount of $125,000. At issue is the city was recently awarded a grant by the Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS, for funding year 25 COPS hiring program. These are funds in the amount of $125,000 to be used to hire and or rehire additional career law enforcement officers in an effort to increase their community policing capacity and crime prevention efforts. A supplemental budget appropriation is required to appropriate $40,341 of the grant funding for fiscal year 2026. Item 1C, Resolution Number 33, 2026, is a resolution amending the 2026 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $14,020 to accept a grant from the Colorado Department of Transportation Law Enforcement Assistance Funding. At issue, the city was recently awarded a grant by the Colorado Department of Transportation Law Enforcement Assistance Funding to purchase laser tech traffic equipment to be used for high visibility enforcement and impaired driving activities. The total cost of the award is $14,020 and is a fully reimbursable award, provided the approved equipment is purchased between July 1st and December 31st of 2026. A supplemental budget appropriation is required to appropriate the grant funding.
Thank you, Councilor Wood. This is our consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. No, I'm sorry.
okay.
I move to approve. It's been a while on consent agenda. I move to approve the consent agenda items number 1A through 1C.
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Okada. Will the clerk please poll the council? Talking is hard tonight. Yes, it's been a while.
8 ayes, no nays, motion's carried.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 2. Councilor Larson, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to transfer the duties of the Board of Adjustment to the Planning Commission. The issue tonight is the proposed ordinance amends Chapter 2 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to transfer the duties of the Board of Adjustment to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this?
Thank you, Mayor. Our Community Development Director, Lauren Mikulak, has a brief update.
Thank you. I'll just add that council did discuss this change at a recent study session in April. The purpose of this change is because the Board of Adjustment has really had a decreased case volume and meeting frequency. And I just want to thank our Board of Adjustment members for their service. When they have convened periodically over the years, they've certainly handled their responsibilities very thoughtfully. This transition is structured to occur over a longer period of time, with the current BOA terms concluding in March of next year, to allow our current members the opportunity to serve on other boards and commissions during this transition period. They have all been apprised of the change and are understanding, and we look forward to working with them in other capacities. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to questions from the public. We have nobody signed up to speak. Do we have questions from council? Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of fairly quick ones. It's mentioned in the staff memo that the Board of Adjustment has, the number of meetings has been quite infrequent. Do you have a number, say within the past 2 years, how many times the Board of Adjustment has met?
I believe they, in the last 2 years, 1 year was 0 times, and 1 year, I believe, was only 1 or 2 times.
And has the Planning Commission itself been polled on the change?
Yes, they have. They had a training last month in June, and they are aware of the responsibilities that they would inherit next year.
Does this mean that the number of members of the Planning Commission will expand?
No, there'll be no change. In both boards, the seated members is only 8 at a time.
And then finally, are there any Board of Adjustment meetings scheduled for within the next, say, 3 or 4 months?
None that are scheduled at this time.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will ask Councilor Larson for a motion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 12-2026, an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to transfer the duties of the Board of Adjustment to the Planning Commission on second reading, order it published, and that it takes effect immediately after final publication.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Ohm. Do we have discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank everyone for their approach and handling of this. I know it came up sort of quickly during the Board and Commission annual update, although it sounded like something staff had been discussing. People's contributions to our boards and commissions are incredibly valuable, and I know people do it because they want to feel like they're having an impact on the city. And I do know one of the members has already applied for other board positions. So as those are open, I'm grateful that we're able to allow them to pick up those opportunities while they're undergoing this transition. So hopefully those who really value that service to our city are able to find other placements. And I think that this is, I remember when I first, before I was on council, but when I was first starting to pay attention, there was the process of decommissioning the Animal Enforcement Committee board. I can't remember exactly what its charge was, but I remember thinking this is kind of a big deal to actually form something and then deconstruct it. So I just want to acknowledge, I think staff has done a really thoughtful job of meeting the needs of our community to have these questions still answered in the future, but also recognizing the contributions of our members. So I appreciate that. And I am looking forward to hopefully placing more of them on other boards and commissions throughout the year.
Thank you. Councilor Quinn.
Pretty much ditto. Just want to thank all the boards and commission members.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Eight ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 3. Councilor Ohm, will you please introduce this?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 14-2026, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning recreational vehicle parking in parks and open space areas. That issue, proposed amendments to section 17-1 and 17-52 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the parking and use of recreational vehicles and other oversized vehicles within city parks, trails, open spaces, the recreation center, and other recreation areas. The proposed changes are intended to ensure these public spaces remain available for their intended recreational purposes and are not used for extended stays, residential occupancy, or activities that interfere with public access and enjoyment.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. I will open the public hearing. Mr. Goff, do we have a presentation?
We do. Thank you. You have presentation or questions? You have some updates? Yep. Division Chief Kellogg is here with some background on this item.
Absolutely. We met on this a short time ago, and just a quick outline as we look. I shared some of the experiences that some of our community members have had and why this was, I believe, to be a very important direction for us to move in. As noted, this is an amendment proposed to 17.1 and 17.2, and it addresses RV parking in the parks, trails, open spaces, and recreation areas. And the goal is to actually, one of the many goals is to keep the public spaces available to the community for the use as recreation, short-term recreational use. And it addresses the extended stays that we've been having to address and deal with over the course of. And it's not that we ever want to put somebody in a difficult situation. It's just that the presence has made the access to the trails quite difficult for our community to use in certain situations. The primary changes, additions are that it adds a definition for a recreational vehicle, which includes motorized or towable vehicles designed for leisure, seasonal use, and temporary living. And it also identifies the fact that they can include beds, kitchens, and bathrooms. So it allows for us to clarify exactly what those things are. We were having some challenges with some of the handmade trailers where somebody has bought a horse trailer or something to that effect and just modified it to be lived in, and it didn't necessarily meet our original definition. The ordinance goes on to actually allow the RVs to be in the park, and it states that they can be in the park during open hours. However, parking for these vehicles are allowed only in the designated oversized vehicle parking areas, and the occupants must be engaged in some sort of recreation-related activities. The existing prohibitions remain for closed parks and emergency access. So currently, we can remove them from parks, or we ask them to move from the parks after the parks are closed. But this actually gives us a little extra authority to deal with some of those things. The maximum parking duration is they can stay for 3 consecutive days, but moving the vehicle doesn't actually reset that time period. And again, it falls back on the fact that they have to remove those vehicles during closed hours when the parks are closed. And the ordinance basically aims to prevent long-term occupancy of our parks in these recreational vehicles. And I believe truly it does support a fair access for our communities and the intended public recreational use. That's all I have. Is there any questions, worries, wonders?
Yeah, we have nobody signed up from the public to speak, so we have questions from council. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. When we were doing this in the study session, there was a question posed about a safe parking program. And it was asked, and I think it was mentioned that there are some partners that provide it. And I just am seeking some clarification about, is there actually a safe parking program that either the city partners with, or that we can provide clear options for people who would be affected by the passage of this?
Right. I did find out that Applewood Community Church has a safe parking program. And then there are 4 different churches, and the names that escape me off the top of my head. One of them is Arvada United Methodist Church, who has a safe parking program. And then there are 2 additional churches, a Baptist church on Ward, and then there is a Unitarian church on Sims Street. But those are in Arvada. But for them, it doesn't really matter where these folks are coming from. But we do have 4 different options for them in the area.
Okay, so if we were to be doing outreach to people who are overstaying what this would mandate and maximize for them, that they would be able to get information on safe parking options for them to go to that would allow them to park overnight.
Absolutely. We would make sure that they have all the information. And let me just speak just a little bit in particular to the RV that actually blocked the pathways. It wasn't just, the officers weren't just there addressing it. We had our crime prevention folks there. We had our officers there, but we also called our homeless navigators. We contacted, and this is something we do regularly. This is not unique, but our homeless navigators came out, our co-responder came out, and we also, he was a vet, and so we contacted the VA and were able to move some of the resources in his direction that he didn't realize he had access to in that moment. So while this promotes, I guess in my mind, it promotes contact, but it also opens the door to a number of different resources and availabilities that they may or may not take advantage of.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And just one more clarification on that, to your question, Councilmember Hulteen, that these are resources provided voluntarily by community churches. The city does not have an active role in these safe parking spaces, but we do partner with them to provide referrals. Yep.
Councilor Larson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First off, Chief, will there be a grace period for this ordinance will go into effect fairly quickly? And there are, I can think of 2 examples at Anderson Park where RVs are parked daily. Will there be a grace period for them? Will they be notified of this change, or will the citations happen immediately?
So we have 15 days after the final publication, after you sign this into existence. But we will get out, we'll make sure that we have those conversations. Our homeless navigators are aware that these things are coming, and we actually spoke about that earlier this morning about that. So we'll make sure that we're getting out and making sure they're aware of what this new ordinance is going to be. We'll also use our social media presence in order to get some of that information out, and any other options that we can think of in the moment.
Thank you, Chief. And then one last question, just as a reminder, what does the city ordinance say on RVs parked for extended periods on public streets?
So we address those. Again, it's a 72-hour type of scenario. They are identified as potentially abandoned vehicles. This is particular to the parks, parking in the RV, the RVs parking in the parks. But we do have an active, for lack of a better term, program. Our community service officers and our police officers are made aware pretty readily that if we've had an RV parking on a street for an extended period of time, we get out and address those things quickly.
So then if a neighbor sees an RV that's been parked for longer than the 72 hours, what should they do after that?
Well, the first thing that they do is they confirm that it is in fact has been parked there for 72 hours. Now here's an interesting story, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but not too long ago, this was May-ish or June-ish, and it was as an RV owner myself, it was a very expensive RV parked on a street, and they were using it to go to soccer games. There was a soccer tournament. They were using it to go to soccer games, and they were using it as like a tailgating vehicle and a place for the kids to rest and that kind of thing. But they would bring it home and they would park it exactly in front of the house that the owners who own it. And they believed that the neighbor who had called believed that it had been parked there for 72 hours. And what we traditionally do and have done since I've been in the area is we mark the tires, we'll mark the street to make sure that we're identifying the fact that has it been parked here for 72 hours? And if it hasn't been, then we make sure that they're aware what's going on. When we do get a call, we will tag it with an abandoned vehicle, this orange tag, an abandoned vehicle tag, and it's explained the consequences to leaving it, but also what the expectation is and what ordinance we're working from. And then a lot of times our officers will just go and knock on the door to try and do the right thing and chat with our community, because the last thing we want to do is tow a vehicle that has not been in violation but looks like it may have been. Does that answer the question? There's a lot to it.
It certainly does. Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask Councilor Ohm for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 14-2026, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning recreational vehicle parking in parks and open space areas on second reading, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Larson. Do we have discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Hulting.
Thank you. I appreciate my question being answered earlier. I just want to share a couple of thoughts. When we were first studying this, it was brought to light that the state actually has created a criminalization of living in RVs and mobile homes and allowing local jurisdictions to determine what that looks like. And I think it's really terrible that we're in that situation at a time when people's ability to stay in their home is tenuous, and we've got increasing prices everywhere. Oftentimes the ability to occupy an RV or a mobile home, and we heard tonight that they oftentimes have kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms, which is what we consider habitable space. I think it's just really hard for us to be in a position where we're criminalizing that at the state level and being asked at the local level to take a closer look at that. That having been said, we also want to make sure our parks work for everybody. I really hope that as we move forward with this and enact it, that we're really supporting people to have safe places to park those RVs. I know we take a very compassionate approach to people's circumstances. And I think, you know, and I'm talking about this from like an economic burden, and that increasingly people are turning to RVs as places where they can call home. And those RVs are much safer a lot of times than some of the sheltering options that are available to them. That we really are supporting their ability to retain some autonomy and authorship in their own life, and where they can occupy. There's also an entire movement out there, and there are days where I wish I was part of it, of people who are living in like really tricked out Sprinter vans and exploring the country. And I think there's a vision of our future in which we're very welcoming to people like that who want to come and visit Wheat Ridge for a couple days as they're out exploring communities. So I want to go on record to say, like, I just don't want to disparage or criminalize the idea that like occupying a well-appointed or even sometimes like, you know, minimally appointed vehicle as an option for people. Just because something's in a building doesn't mean it's a better option. So that having been said, I think the rest of this is pretty well thought out. So I will go ahead and support it, but I only because I've got the confidence that both our police department and our housing outreach people are going to be compassionate and helpful and really make sure that people who are depending on those vehicles to be home have a safe place to do that, because I just think we shouldn't be criminalizing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for those words. I wholeheartedly agree. And I feel like this is just like we would expect. This whole process has been approached with a lot of compassion from our police department, which I'm incredibly proud of, and always, I've come to expect it because that's what our police department does. Someone very close to me lives in an RV most of the time, luckily not in Colorado. But I am very much aware of how that can be perceived in different communities, but it is a real option for a lot of people, and it's the only option for a lot of people. And it is important to think of our community and being welcome, very much like Mayor Pro Tem said. And I'm very encouraged by the fact that there are organizations in our community that provide safe places to park, and I'm interested to learn more about that, and perhaps, you know, that's not something that I think a lot of our community members know about, and it could be something that we do some outreach. And I'm not suggesting anyone do this right now, but just it's, you know, something that I feel like other organizations might want to get on board with to provide a safe place to park. So thank you for the compassionate approach and for the well thought out answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. And adding on to that, I do recognize that we urgently need more funding for affordable housing, and you know, always looking at, you know, ways to streamline things policy-wise. And so we just, you know, ask that, you know, down the road, we keep looking for more ways to fund that affordable housing. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Thank you. 8 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Sounded like you were hitting the wrong button. I don't know. Yeah, that's the ejector seat. All right, we'll go to agenda item number 4. Councilor Okada, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Introducing Council Bill number 17-2026, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 5225 Swadley Street from agricultural 2 to planned residential development, with approval of an outline development plan, case number WZ-24-09. At issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from agricultural 2 to planned residential development, with an outline development plan to facilitate the development of up to 18 single-unit dwelling units on the 4.97-acre property located at 5225 Swadley Street. A legal protest has been submitted and verified, so the zone change will require at least 6 votes by City Council for approval at second reading.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date and time for public hearing. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve Council Bill number 17-2026, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 5225 Swadley Street from agricultural 2 to planned residential development with an outlined development plan on first reading for the sole purpose of ordering it published for a public hearing set for Monday, August 10th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. in City Council chambers, and, if adopted, that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
I have a second by Councilor Ohm. Will the clerk please poll the council?
8 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will move on to agenda item number 5. Councilor Snell, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be happy to. This is resolution number 34-2026, a resolution amending the 2026 fiscal year general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $96,000 for the purpose of an equity audit services. One sec, sorry. At the direction of City Council, staff is requesting approval of a budget supplemental of $96,000 to complete an internal equity audit.
Thank you. This is a resolution by council. Mr. Goff, do we have a presentation on this?
We do. Mary Ann Schilling, our Deputy City Manager, has a presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm joined tonight by Carly Seba, our Manager of People and Culture, who's also the co-staff liaison to our IDEA Committee. Tonight, staff is requesting approval of resolution number 34-2026, which would amend the 26 general fund budget to appropriate $96,000 for the completion of an organizational equity audit. As a background, this item came to light following the 2026 budget adoption last October, when council requested that staff explore an equity audit to better understand the IDEA-related opportunities and gaps within the organization. City Council did give consensus to return with additional information, and then in January of this year, staff presented a scope to you all and received direction to move forward with a request for proposals and return with a contract with a budget supplemental request. In June, this item was postponed at the direction of City Council so that the IDEA Committee could review the proposed scope of work. The committee has since completed its review and recommends proceeding with the project as proposed. The purpose of this audit is to provide the city with comprehensive data-informed assessment of our policies, practices, organizational culture, and community engagement efforts. It's not unlike the path that was taken with our Sustainability Committee when the city first had a volunteer-led action plan in 2018, and then in 2024 had a consultant-led plan. Similarly, the Race and Equity Task Force worked in a recommendation report for 2 years before completing it in 2023, and now the use of an external consultant demonstrates the city's ready to take that work to the next level. So staff believes this effort represents an investment in the organizational effectiveness and continuous improvement. Similar to operational assessments, strategic planning initiatives, or financial audits, this process will provide objective data and stakeholder input to inform future decisions and ensure that the city continues to provide excellent service to employees and residents alike. So with that, staff recommends approval of Resolution 34-2026, amending the 26 fiscal year budget to reflect the approval of a budget supplemental appropriation of $96,000 for equity audit services. And Carly and I are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Before we go to questions from council, we have one person signed up to speak, Morgan Richards. When you come up, just go ahead and spell your last name. Let us know whether you live or work in Wheat Ridge, and you may go.
Good evening, council. My name is Morgan Richards, R-A-C-H-A-R-D-S. I live and own a very small business in Wheat Ridge. I'm the founder of Wheat Ridge for Equity, a member of our city's Inclusivity, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Committee. Please approve the budget for the equity audit tonight. It is personally meaningful to our family that you are voting on this tonight after you honor Disability Pride Month. I have a young adult child with autism and intellectual disabilities, and I'm a person with severe ADHD, which is a disability. The world is not always kind to people who are neurodivergent. Our differences are not always valued. Your leadership on this tells us we matter. Thank you. And I want to give a special unicorn thank you to Mayor Stites and Mayor Pro Tem Holteen. As you sat on the dais when community members asked you in 2020 to create a race and equity task force, which you both supported. And here we are tonight with another monumental milestone advancing this work. The audit will ultimately support our shared economic resilience and help ensure that every community member feels wanted and safe in Wheat Ridge. I also believe that the audit is a smart risk management investment for our community. We always want to know what we need to improve on. Thank you for keeping your promise to advance this work. I am grateful that you continue to lead on this by following the hearts and minds of our community members. Thank you.
Thank you. We have nobody else signed up to speak. Do we have questions from council? Councilor Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions, and first of all, thank you for bringing this forward, and appreciate the opportunity to try to better understand the purpose and the timing of this. First of all, I want to mention that I'm a proponent for this audit. I totally believe in it, but where I think I have an opposition to this at this time is the dollar amount. And during our outreach program so far this month, talking with some community members in my district, they're very apprehensive about putting forth almost $100,000 into this audit out of reserve funds. I think people would be a little more, in the district, would be a little more acceptable if it's budgeted for in 2027 and not an appropriation or a change to the budget. And so I guess forming one of my questions is there a reason or a incident that has come about that has made this an more important thing to bring forth? Is there, I guess, if that makes sense.
I think that'd be a question for the rest of your council. This was directed by council to bring forward. So I would ask that you ask your council members.
Councilor Snow? Kind of a previous question you might probably want to ask the council. So
I'm sorry.
I said you probably wanted to have that conversation before tonight.
Okay, I got you. So, all right. That's kind of all I have right now.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. The one thing I wanted to just kind of touch on is that a couple weeks ago we had the City of Wheat Ridge resident survey, the community inclusivity and equality in Wheat Ridge, and generally, I think we've all read it and looking at it, and you know, one of the top things says making all residents feel welcome in business establishments, 77%, and welcoming residents from all backgrounds to participate in local government, 70%, making all residents feel welcome, 67%, respecting individual cultural beliefs and values, 65%, treating all residents fairly, 65%, providing a safe and secure environment for residents of all backgrounds, 64%, providing equal employment opportunities to residents of all backgrounds, 62%. It kind of, looking at this, tells me that the city is generally doing a pretty good job. The city scored a 7 out of 10. The follow-up questions I have are, has staff reached out to Arvada, Golden, Lakewood, and have they gone forward with any DEI work, or is Wheat Ridge an outlier?
A little bit. I mean, I would say that generally those organizations are doing DEI work in terms of an actual audit. I know that Golden did one. I don't know if Arvada has done one.
We believe Arvada had a consultant 2 years ago.
What's that?
Arvada had a consultant 2 years ago.
Thank you. And then, has there been any prevalence of non-equity issues in city staff in terms of number, like a number of employees that you could provide any specific instances of evidence of non-equity issues? I'm looking for like a specific number, just generally. Is it 1? Is it 20? Is it 100? Some type of number.
Yeah, that's really hard to provide. A lot of times employees, when they don't feel welcome, when they don't feel like they belong in a place, they simply leave. We try to do exit surveys with our employees as they're walking out the door. We have heard things of, that they feel like the values don't align with their values, that there's problems with other staff in the city, that they feel like they're not supported. I will say that's not the majority of what we hear from our staff, but I think something like an equity audit would help expose maybe some of these issues. I've heard anecdotal things through my work as the manager of people and culture, certainly. And so something like this by a third party, by a vendor who's a professional in this, can help highlight maybe some of these issues that we're not aware of, that people are not comfortable coming to us with, and help bring them to the fore so we can address them.
Will the equity audit be asked to the businesses, the community, the businesses, or is this just?
No, the scope that you provided presented an internal audit.
Okay. And then will there be the implementation plan that will include cost estimates for recommended changes, timelines, and performance measures?
Yes, one of the outcomes is a roadmap that will be a result of this.
Do we have any idea what that cost would be for
The
changes?
roadmap in and of itself is part of the scope, and that's part of the 96,000. In terms of what the recommendations and how much those would cost, we would have to see. It would be premature to speculate on that.
And then my last question is what would happen if the audit only produces recommendations without implementation authority or implementation due to budget constraints? I'm asking if we do the audit, it has recommendations, but due to budget constraints, we can't go forward because we have no idea how much the next step after the audit is.
Well, that would have to be a discussion amongst staff and council on what your priorities are at that time based on our budget constraints. But it's hard to speculate on what those would look like, so can't really answer that directly.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Larson.
That's a good question. And I think that we would lean on their expertise to do so. They've been in this realm for 20 years. And from reading and getting references from them, we're really confident that they would be able to do this work. And we received 11 proposals for this work. Only one was local. So I think we're also limited with our choices in that as well.
Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you. I've got a couple questions. So just as a reminder, is this within the budget scope that was discussed in January when we brought it to council?
Yes, the scope that I brought to you was between 65 and 125,000. You narrowed the scope down, and so I think you'll see that reflected in the cost.
Okay. And then as far as the availability of funds like this through an appropriation, Patrick, can you speak to where we are in terms of appropriating budgets and contracts like this?
Yes, we're through, I just looked at June financials, and our revenues are up. Sales tax is up 3% over last year, so we have adequate reserves to fund this.
Okay, so this wouldn't create any constraints against other things we're discussing?
No.
Okay. I think those are my two questions for now. Thank you.
Councilor Martell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of comments, I think.
Questions right now.
Questions. In the scope of work that was presented to us. Actually, I might need to step down and think about this a little more. Sorry.
That's good. Any other questions? Mr. Goff, you mentioned that revenue right now is looking pretty good. How do our expenses for, you guys are starting to look at the budget, how are our expenses looking for the next year?
Yeah, we've been in budget meetings all day, so, yeah, there's a lot of increases that we're going to have to absorb next year with different outside agency groups. Nonprofits are losing a lot of funding that support us in different ways. Our property liability insurance is increasing 20%, I believe. Medical, dental is increasing 10%. So there's some increases. We don't have the full picture yet, so I can't answer that fully. Haven't seen all the budgets from every department, so don't know right now.
Okay, but we
there's-
do know.
There's a lot of increases, yes.
Costs are going up.
Yep.
My other question, I guess, and it kind of goes a little bit with Councilor Ohm's question. Are we seeing employees leaving? I mean, I own a martial arts school, so sometimes when we have a normal attrition rate, but when we like see a spike in attrition, we get a little worried about something. Are we seeing employees leaving in droves, or are we seeing spikes in attrition for any reason?
I will say this year, our attrition rate has been pretty low. I do think, though, it's not just about people leaving. It's about their satisfaction in their job, how they show up each day and how they serve the residents that they're assisting in their day-to-day work with their programs and services. So I think, people might not necessarily be leaving. It's a tough job market out there. That's a tough, kind of correlation to make. But I do think it affects how people show up for work if they aren't feeling supported and heard in their position.
Sure. Do we follow standard practices as far as our HR policies and our management policies, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we absolutely do. We have SOPs. We have standardized a lot of our processes. I do think this is an opportunity, though, to make sure those policies, they work as they are intended. They're also being consistently applied across the organization. We don't always understand when we put something into place how it affects each person. Something that we think is a great policy citywide, we realize maybe impacts people in very different ways. And so something like an equity audit would help us identify those things to make sure when we are putting policies and procedures into place, we are doing it in a way that, it takes into account different departments, different divisions, different working needs, so we can best meet employees' needs.
Okay, thank you. So this is more of a snapshot of the employees that are here now, though, and how they feel versus, so if we have managers that leave in the next few months or something, I mean, does that kind of affect the results of this?
So they would not be part of the polling population that the equity audit firm would use. We will continue to do exit interviews with them to see, why, if we can discover why they're leaving. But if there is any recent people leaving, it's likely that their feedback would not be included in the equity audit.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Snell?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify this, this consultant, when they come in to do work, they're looking at individual employee experiences, or are they looking at more like how we're operating and our policies and things like that?
Both. So they would do a review of our policies and procedures. They'd also do a staff-wide survey, and then they'd also hold some focus group with some key individuals.
Thank you.
Any other question? Councilor Martell?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have one this time. Real quick, Dan, I received a note that somebody listening online couldn't hear you earlier.
That's okay.
Sorry. So my question is similar to what Councilmember Snell asked. When we're looking at individual employee experiences and procedures and policy, will this also include how, if procedures are written, how are they being followed? And how are employees feeling they can challenge if procedures are being followed or make recommendations on procedures. And part of that is we can do a study and make recommendations and we can put things in place, but are they, like, will this dig into how can we actually implement and change things that are actually needed?
So I think the answer to that question is yes. They're going to look at all of that and help us find that roadmap to make sure that we can implement it in a way that is feasible for the city.
Councilor Wood.
I've appreciated the questions and have learned from them, and it made me think of one. When you talked about focus groups, are you talking about focus groups within the city, or is there any kind of outreach to those who avail themselves of city services, and how working with city process or city staff, how that works for them?
So the scope of work we were directed to from council really is focused internally. So it's not so much going to be pulling outside community members at this point. It's focused internally.
Thank you.
Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor. And I apologize for not hitting the green button here to get my voice over the airwaves. I will go ahead and repeat the question if you don't mind. My question was how confident are you that a firm out of another part of the country will be able to make the local connections given the differences in local culture here in Wheat Ridge?
And the response was that they have a lot of work in this realm with 20 years of experience, and that truthfully we received also limited local options. And so I think of our out-of-state options, this was the very best. I didn't mention earlier, but I would say one of the reasons that I really like this group is because a lot of them have worked in municipal government, which is its own culture, and so they understand what it means to actually put some of this work into place. That really was something exciting for us as staff.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mayor Pro Tem Hulting?
Yeah, just a clarification on the scope. A lot of the questions that we've been posing have really focused on HR issues, but I just want to check, does this actually touch on other processes and policies internal to the city? I know we've established in the Q&A, and it's in the packet, that this is an internal equity audit, but would it be looking at things other than just HR and employee satisfaction? Does it look at different types of policies and procedures that may ultimately affect our community, but would be part of an internal audit?
Yes, the scope includes city policies, practices, and training. So that does include personnel and human resources, but also organizational structure, protocols, communications, city staff demographics, especially as compared to peer agencies in the most recent census, and then also community engagement.
Great, thank you. And you did say that includes communications in there as well. Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, I will go ahead and ask Councilor Snell for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 34-2026, a resolution amending the 2026 fiscal year general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $96,000 for the purpose of equity audit services.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Okada. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, staff, for the thorough documentation and the specifics. Thank you also, council, for questions. Some questions that I didn't realize I had. Some questions I didn't realize I had. So thank you for asking those. I am strongly in support of this equity audit. One thing that I want to mention is equity audits themselves need not be reactive. In fact, like many audits, they're far more effective when they're proactive, before we have issues and before we get to a place of problem. Audit work is also very specialized. I have had the privilege in my day job to participate in a few equity audits, and some equity audits which have not gone very well, which have gone a little bit more on feel rather than on principle, and deeply rooted principles and the expertise that can come along with that. So I felt a lot of confidence, not just in the documentation we have here, but also in the answers to the questions about 20 years of experience and these things, which give me a lot more confidence in this mechanism than some of the audits that I've seen in the past. And knowing how hyper specialized that work is, to me, I don't have any personal concerns about whether or not this group that's coming in is local or not. Having the right people who know with good expertise is the important piece. And the last thing I want to mention is in the equity audits and in the DEI work and accessibility work that I've been privileged to be able to be a part of, the training that I've received has had many moments of me understanding that an unconscious bias that I had previously had become a conscious bias and something that I can begin to work on. Those are always extremely surprising. They're unconscious for a very clear reason. So looking at this work here and knowing that we may find some very significant and some very important things, the audit also might find less information than we would hope. The audit itself, I think, is a really important way to have an expert from the outside come in and make sure that Wheat Ridge continues to be a place that's extremely welcoming and continues to not miss any opportunities to be able to benefit from the objective benefits that come along with diversity.
Councilor Wood.
In some ways, I'm echoing a bit Councilmember Okada's statements. Equity is something that I don't think that if we go back 10 years, we really didn't understand and know much about. And it wasn't so much in the forefront, but it has become that over the past 10 years, and particularly, I think, today. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to seize upon that and to learn from it and to ensure that we stay in that good place that at least with the residents of Wheat Ridge, clearly we're in with the results of the survey that Councilmember Ohm pointed out, because I think that's something that we want to continue and make sure continues. You know, when we're doing well internally, it gives us a better opportunity and chance to continue to do well externally as well. When it comes to equity, I think there's just that opportunity to not know what you don't know until you really look into it and ask the questions. And I think this is an opportunity to keep this going forward in order to get those answers and continue to move in the positive directions that we're, like I said, clearly that we're moving in.
Thank you. Councilor Martell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take a little step back and go back partway in this conversation, not all the way back to 2020 when the Race and Equity Task Force was stood up and led to the IDEA Committee, but more recently in 2025 when this particular conversation started, and it really came out of a breakdown between a city employee at our wonderful community garden and a indigenous grower in our community garden. And, you know, I was there when a lot of that happened. I wasn't yet on city council. I knew the players, and I believe that situation that brought up some of these conversations is such a great example of why this is important, because I believe that mistakes were made on many sides of that situation, and that there were so many good intentions on every side of that situation. And the breakdown was not just in intentions versus communication, but there were procedures and policies that could have been in place that could have prevented some of that, and procedures that could have been followed differently, or even just processes that we might have still had a disagreement, but if we had better tools at that time, it could have been handled much better. And I think this is a great example of when something happens, things are always going to happen, things are going to break down. How we deal with it and how we learn from it is a testament to how we want to behave as a city. And this is an opportunity that came directly from that situation and gives us an opportunity to say, hey, things didn't go great in that relationship, and it was city involved and it was community involved. Let's do better. Let's learn. Let's look at our procedures. Let's look at our processes. Let's make sure, now I'm talking more hypothetical, not that situation, but do city employees feel safe in their roles? Do they know what their roles are? Do they know when they can push and where, and when to get support? And I think our opportunity right now to bring in people that can help us make sure we do better. And off of what Councilmember Ohm said about our survey results and where they are, they're not bad. 70s, 60s, that's not bad. But with this work, we can make those even better, and we can send a message that we want to learn from those mistakes. We want to do better. We want to find our gaps proactively. And I think Councilmember Okada referred to the unconscious bias, and sometimes just pointing that out shifts it to conscious, and then you can start focusing on it. That's a conversation. That isn't a lot of expensive training or expensive mechanisms that need to be put in place. So I am 100% for this audit. I know that it is an expense, and we are talking to our community about serious expenses coming up that we need, and I think this is as important even with that timing. So thank you.
Councilor Larson, or we'll go
Thank you,
Councilor
Mayor.
Larson first.
And I personally am glad that this issue is before council tonight, and that we're looking at a decision tonight, because this is an issue that frankly has been kind of hanging out there in the question whether what was going to happen, what will it look like. Now that we see it and we have an opportunity to vote on it, I think this is, I appreciate that on a personal level. And I do want to say up front that I do have a firm belief that having a diverse workplace that is inclusive of all employees is valuable. It promotes problem solving and innovation. But I believe money would be better spent on improving skills with training. I do not believe this is an appropriate use of city funds, and that through voluntary task force rather than mandatory compliance training would probably be a more workable solution. So that's why I will not be supporting this tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say I really appreciate this work and totally believe in the audit and what it stands for. As I've talked to several of you, my experiences with the IBW and the Electrical Worker Minority Caucus, whom I brought forth to accept the proclamation for Black History Month in February, they were very honored to be a part of that, and I was super honored to introduce Wheat Ridge to that group and that group to Wheat Ridge. And little disappointed they haven't been contacted yet to help us do whatever their community involvement was. To be fair and equitable, though, I do believe the voices of some folks that don't believe this is a good expense at this time, maybe being budgeted, need to be heard to be fair and equitable for all of that. And I think those folks need to have their voices heard. I believe in this audit, but I think this is one of those times as I have to put my personal beliefs aside and do what my constituents believe and make their voices heard. I think this will pass tonight. I think it's got the votes to pass, and I believe in it. But I just want to make it known that I hear those voices that think this is not a good expense, and I hear them. And I've struggled with this on where to vote on this all day for those voices. We are here for the community, not just for us individually. And I have yet to have someone run up to me and say, this is a great idea. I've had a few come up and go, I don't think this is a good expense at this time, especially if we're polling people for big expenditures for capital projects that we need in the future. It kind of sends a weird message. And to be quite honest, I'm still quite conflicted on this. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this discussion very much. I appreciate this being on our agenda this evening. As someone who's been involved in this work in our community for some time, having been on the Race and Equity Task Force and then being fortunate enough to be our first council liaison for our IDEA committee after it was seated, I have seen this evolve in our community and get to the point of having this discussion tonight. This discussion has been coming, but it's also pieces of it have happened before. And I feel like it is time for us to finally have this and get it in our rear view. But I want to just comment on a couple of things that have been said and thoughts that have been shared. Number one, I am very proud of our IDEA committee and taking the time to go through this proposal and provide feedback. And I heard some of those discussions as well, and so I'm thankful to them. But what I want to point out, both with the Race and Equity Task Force and with the IDEA committee, is they are exactly that. They are volunteer community members who live in our community, who experience life differently, just like everyone else. But no one on that committee is a professional who does this work. And so that's one reason why I'm in full support of actually having a consultant firm do this work. There may be things that come out of this audit that the IDEA committee can then take and present to the community, work on, program, what have you. But the point of this is that we have professionals who will come in who do this for a living, who obviously do this all over the country, just like consultants that we hire for many other things to get the best work done. And so that's one thing that I wanted to make sure to support this, and also support our volunteer community members, committee members. And also just want to point out that in a time in our country when federal funding is being pulled back, when protections are being pulled back, when people are being othered through taking away funding for programs, for supporting Black and brown people and queer people in different areas of their life and professional life. This is happening all over the country because of our federal government pulling those protections. This is a time for us as a community to do the right thing and speak for our community and all of our community, not just the folks who are always at meetings, who are always in our kind of purview. And I realize that this is not directly related to our community yet, but it gives our staff the tools to be able to break down every piece of systems that we do and find blind spots, find unconscious bias, and find ways to do things better. And I think that is what Wheat Ridge is about, is doing things better and doing things the right way and doing things for all of our community. And so I have been very familiar with this work for a long time in our community. I mean, a long time, since 2020, which is in this work is a really short amount of time. But it's really important that we take this important step for our staff, for our city, to have a strong springboard to go from, and make sure that we are doing everything to the best of our abilities. And so I am in full support of this. I appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holtine.
Thank you. When this came up a couple of weeks ago, I had put it on the consent agenda just because the scope of what came to us was within what we had given direction in the budget. So with feedback from the community, I elected that night, after talking with Councilmember Snell and others, to pull it and let IDEA committee take a look at it, because I think that's important for us, because this is the kind of decision where it's really important to know what our community thinks and feels. I do want to just make note for the record that we heard from 4 people through Wheat Ridge Speaks who all express support for it, including somebody who works for a community private family foundation that invests in communities like Wheat Ridge, and they like seeing work like this moving forward, so that when they're making funding decisions. And then obviously the person we heard from today in person also spoke in favor of it. What we didn't hear is anyone who came forward who was willing to put their name behind speaking against it. So I just want to make note that oftentimes people who are speaking against this like to do it anonymously and don't want to come and stand in front of us and let those opinions be known. I'm supporting this for a lot of reasons. One, I fundamentally think this work is really important, and you can never do enough, but you have to do something. And this is something that we, in January, as a council, came to a consensus was the right next step for us to take. We gave direction. Staff did their work and brought back to us what we gave them direction. Unless there's some huge, extraordinary reason, I don't like to rethink those decisions. And this was the seated council that made that decision. So I feel strongly about moving forward decisions that we've made. The scope that's brought to us is the kind of scope that's needed. Nobody can assess their own blind spots. Much in the same way that we rely on consultants, like we're going to hear shortly in our study session on 38th Avenue. We lack a certain amount of expertise. We're not the smallest city, but we're not the biggest city. But this is the kind of work that really relies on someone to come from the outside and come in and actually work with us in a way that gives us something that's actionable. What we've heard since we started this conversation in 2020 is that we need to take tangible actions. And the kind of volleying back and forth between asking community volunteers to do that heavy lifting versus actually engaging professionals who are going to bring strategic, actionable, targeted, measurable recommendations to the city is a huge move forward. And I think that's really important for us, because otherwise we're going to put ourselves in a situation where we're constantly saying, well, the volunteers are, doing all this great thing one night a month for two hours. And meanwhile, we're a city that employs hundreds of people. And we're doing a lot of good things, but good intentions don't always translate to good outcomes. And we don't always have systems in place that allow people whose voices are historically underrepresented to come forward and let us know what they think. So I think this is really important for the employees that we value today and the ones that we want to see tomorrow. Another reason for me, our money is our values, and we actually have, as part of I'm just going to read our vision. Wheat Ridge is a dynamic and welcoming community where collaboration with all people guides growth by embracing equity, innovation, and tradition. And I think this really aligns with that vision. And I think that much like bike lanes, we can't say we're for bike safety without actually funding bike lanes. So this is, I think, an important first step so that the steps we take in the future are actually well anchored and supported in our city staff. And then lastly, I just want to say, I think right now equity is a real trigger word, and trigger is also a trigger word. So we just collapse on ourselves when we say things like this. But at the end of the day, this is really about belonging. And I think if we called this a belonging and vibrant inclusion audit, audit's also not a great word. None of these words are great for what we're trying to accomplish with this, which is just trying to become a better city where people feel welcome and included. And I appreciate Councilmember Ohm's statistics from our recent community survey. But again, we don't know if people feel like it's an inclusive community because they're benefiting tremendously from people whose voices aren't being heard. So I think it's good to see generally people feeling it's a good and right community in a lot of ways, but I think this is a really important point. So those are the reasons I feel strongly about moving forward this, but first and foremost is that this council said in January we wanted this. And so I am sticking with my word on that, and I will be supporting in favor.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, fellow council members, for all your really, really good points. Unfortunately, I'm not sitting in that same boat. I base my decision on all the information that I get, and I need to have a clear, defined problem. And when I've asked for specific answers, I've not gotten those. I wish I could have had those conversations with Councilmember Snell and Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen to help me better understand what this is. When we asked the IDEA committee, provide some feedback, the answer was, we recommend to go forward. That unfortunately does not help me. I need the why. I need to really understand the problem and the why. And I would be on board with you, but I feel like I've been excluded from that communication. I also have questions of, we have this IDEA committee, but, have we looked at the website lately? It's like, why are their names of the constituents that I appointed, why are they excluded from being on that web page when every other committee? And so, I don't know why. I wish I did. I wish somebody could explain it to me, but I just have a lot of questions. And, I think if I was just had that bigger discussion, and the reason probably why I was, as I moved along, I kept hoping that the more discussions that we had, the more information I got, the better that I can understand what's happening. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened for me. What I understand now is, yes, if we spend some money, we can go find some problems. Okay, but I've had one constituent email me a couple weeks ago when we did the consent agenda, and they were totally against it. Just one. We've seen three, I think 2 or 3. I've had one email me in support, and I've seen 2 other from my district in support. So it tells me that this isn't a hot topic, as opposed to like, what is a really defined problem that I see in my city? Like weekly, it's the homelessness problem. I get emails all the time. I see that all the time with homelessness everywhere, whether it's in the RVs. And I keep thinking, like, how do we solve that? And I keep engaging people. We need more housing. We need to look at policy. We need to look at everything, financing. It's a really well-defined problem. We've spent a lot of time talking. I understand that problem. The equity, I just haven't had that much information. And I really wish that I could have seen some type of communication, some type of report, from the IDEA committee that says, this is why, something long. I could read into it, I can understand it, and I can do an analysis. But for me, it's been minimal. I feel like I have just kind of been excluded from all that conversation. And so I just don't know that I feel comfortable spending the 100,000, the 96, to go find problems when we have some really defined problems that I know that we could help the community. I think if my support would be pegged more if we didn't do it this year, because it's not in the budget, and if we had it for next year, but and then I would have some time to understand. But that's how I feel. I feel I just haven't been getting enough information to make a really good informed decision. And at the end of the day, I need to tell my constituents, and they say, Councilmember, why did you vote yes on this? Please tell me everything about this equity audit. And I can't tell them honestly, like, this is everything I understand, because I still don't. I still haven't heard the why, I haven't heard the problems. But I can tell you about affordable housing. I can tell you about all these other issues that we have in the city, whether it's crime, because we spent so much time and we really talked about that. And so that's where I'm sitting. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
We have 5 ayes, 3 nays. The motion does carry.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 6. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you. I'd like to introduce a motion to appoint Councilmember Mike Okada to the IDEA Committee as council liaison. At issue, the City of Wheat Ridge has 11 boards, commissions, and committees. To facilitate communication between these bodies and the City Council, Council has appointed council liaisons to several of them. Councilmember Jenny Snell has requested to step down as the council liaison to the IDEA Committee, and Mayor Stites recommends appointing Councilmember Mike Okada to serve in that role.
Thank you. This is a motion before the council. It's not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a presentation? Seeing none there. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? All right. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen, may I have a motion?
Thank you. I recommend the appointment of Councilmember Mike Okada to the IDEA Committee as council liaison.
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Quinn. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Councilor Martell.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to take a moment to thank Councilmember Snell for all of her work with the IDEA Committee, starting back with the Race and Equity Task Force, even before she was on City Council, and then taking the steps to running for City Council and honestly inspiring me to run for City Council, and all of her work as the liaison for the IDEA Committee. And I think that particularly with the audit we just passed, we're at a great point of moving forward with the IDEA Committee, and she's done tremendous work to get it at a place for Councilmember Okada to step in and take it to its next level. And I'm very excited to see what the new phase will be. And I just really wanted to appreciate and say thank you to Councilmember Snell for her work.
Thank you. Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also echo thank yous to Councilmember Snell. We had quite a few conversations about this possibility, and getting to a place of comfort and understanding the gravity of the importance of this work is something that I think is really core to my understanding and kind of my buy-in into the possibility of being able to fill big shoes. So thank you so much for the work that you've done. I love the really difficult nature of diversity, equity, inclusiveness, and accessibility work. It's conceptually very difficult for people to not just understand, but for the people who feel very supportive of it to be able to get efficacious work out of it. And to watch someone do that really difficult work so successfully for such a long time, and being able to enter into that challenge and understand what we need to do as a committee, and my role as liaison for the talented people that are in that committee, I'm very excited about the possibility of taking this next step. So thank you very much.
Councilor Quinn.
Congratulations, Councilor Okada. And Jenny, I love you, and you do a wonderful job. You've got some really big shoes to fill. I hope you have your clown ones that you're ready to put your feet into. The committee's getting a great liaison, and I'm excited to hear the work you're going to be doing, and I am excited for the IDEA committee, and I want to hear more, and I know the vote we just had I'm probably gonna get some hate mail over it, but that's where my heart was. I had to do what my constituents want. So, but thank you, Mike. You're doing a great job.
Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to just sing the praises of Councilor Okada. We did have quite a few conversations. This decision did not come easily. This is something that I'm very personally connected to. I'm certainly not stepping back from the work. I'm always going to do this work, but I think that this is an excellent opportunity for the IDEA Committee. Councilor Okada knows how to listen in a way that I don't think many of us do. His listening skills are masterful. And I feel like the ability for him to listen and understand so many different voices and so many different positions and so many different people will serve the IDEA Committee, or frankly anyone who gets to be around him, very well. I think that we are set up for success because he has said yes. So thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for the time. I'm thankful for being able to be involved in this in the community that I live in, the community that so many of my dear friends live in. And I will cherish this time. I'm very honored to have been a part of this, and I just can't wait to see what happens next. So thank you.
Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor. And when I saw this item on the agenda, I had to do some research and find out who this Mike Okada. I'm kidding, of course, but I have to say, and for the record, that I am extremely proud of my colleague in the 4th District stepping up to this position. Just in the time he's been on council, I've seen him grow into the role, and I am very, very happy to work with Mike on all kinds of things, but I am especially proud of this latest step for Mike.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thanks. I just really want to thank Councilmember Snell for stepping into this. To become a liaison as a new counselor to a newly formed committee is actually a really heavy lift. When we formed the legislative committee, that was several experienced people, and it was still just a really chaotic heavy lift because you're trying to decide what to do while it's happening without a lot of precedence. And so I just really want to name, to be the first council member on a new committee is a really unique and never to be experienced again position. And it takes a real special skill to navigate the formation of something, especially in, when you've got people coming in and we've got relatively one more established and one newer staff member. I mean, it was just a lot of newness. So I just really want to recognize that. And I'm just really grateful that we have a deep bench and that Councilmember Okada was willing to step up and lend his skills, having served with him on said still somewhat nascent legislative committee. I've seen firsthand his ability to both listen but synthesize
suggests actionable ways of moving forward in a way that people feel really heard and that the things that have been expressed as important are on the table and moving forward. So thank you for stepping up. I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Snell, I really want to thank you for your time. You're a pioneer. You know, being in that committee and then becoming a council liaison, spending the time and helping to educate me more on the different subjects that are near and dear to your heart and that are great for the community. You've done the community, you've done such a great thing for the community, and the community appreciates everything that you've done. I hope that, as we look back on this, I just will always remember you as the pioneer of the IDEA Committee. And Councilmember Okada, I look forward to lots of questions and details. I really do. And my only ask is just, please share those with me. I really want to learn more. And so I have just the utmost respect for you getting into this. Thank you.
Councilor Wood.
I hope last but not least, I think that we are so fortunate to have Councilmember Snell and the work that you have done and the passion that you brought to that work and the strides that have been made. And I also think that we are so fortunate to have Councilmember Okada, who also has passion and can take this up and take it forward and take it further. We're lucky to have you both, and thank you both for all the work you do. Thank you.
It's all been said. Thank you so much for your hard work, Jenny, and good luck, Mike. May the odds be forever in your favor on that one. I see members of the IDEA Committee back there salivating, getting ready for you. So we will go ahead and poll the council. Thank you.
That's 8 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Fantastic. We'll move on to our last agenda item number 7. Councilor Martell.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to introduce a request for City Council action, so titled, Consideration of Notice of Violation under Regulatory Impairment of Property Rights Statute. At issue, the city has received a June 16, 2026 notice of violation from the attorneys for the Lakeside Auto Wash. This notice is filed under the Regulatory Impairment of Property Rights Statute, CRS 29-2201. Under the statute, the city must respond to the notice by informing the property owner that the new conditions imposed by the SUP by the council's May 18, 2026 motion and June 8, 2026 written findings and decisions will either proceed as approved, be modified, or be discontinued.
Thank you. This is a motion for the council. We'll go ahead and recognize City Attorney Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a procedural matter, I'd like to ask that Councilmember Hulteen be excused from participation on this matter. And as the basis for that, council will remember that Councilmember Hulteen was excused and recused from action on the matter during your at the beginning of your May 18th hearing, and also on June 8th when the written findings and decision came back for your review and consideration. And I would ask that on that same basis, she be excused from participating in the council's action on this matter. And as I think we handled it through my partner Thad Renault to begin with, all I would ask is that there be a show of hands of members of the council, other than Council Member Hulteen, agreeing that she should be recused.
We need a show of
So
hands.
if you agree she should be recused, please so indicate. Let the record reflect that all 7 council members other than Councilmember Hulteen have agreed that she should be excused from participation in this matter, and we'll excuse her, and as soon as she's out of the room, we'll continue. Thank you. The minutes will indicate that Councilmember Hulteen left the council chamber for this item. And the issue tells you basically what this item is about. You have in your packet both the June 16th letter from the attorney for Lakeside Auto Wash, as well as your your June 8th findings and decision, which memorializes your May 18th action, and you approved those findings back in June. And as you know, those findings imposed additional conditions on the special use permit for Lakeside Auto Wash. There is a statute which Mr. Hollers references in his letter that gives property owners a potential remedy when an action is taken affecting their property, a rezoning action, a subdivision action, and in this particular case, an amendment of a special use permit action, which the council has taken. And that remedy that's available for property owners is preconditioned on, or there's a precondition to them being able to exercise the remedy, that they have to give you a notice that they think you violated this statute, and you are required to then respond and say whether you're going to proceed with the action that you took, change that action, or reverse that action. And of course, the request from the property owners would be reversed. So that's what the statute does. But let me tell you, the standards in the statute are ones that we're all familiar with and have been true in land use control in the nation and in Colorado for a very long time. And the statute merely codifies in law, in the state statutes, case law that we've seen from the United States Supreme Court for quite some time, establishing a couple of standards. One, that any action you take, land use action affecting someone's property, have a rational relation to a true governmental purpose. And secondly, that whatever action you take and whatever burdens or conditions you place or exactions you place on land use, that those be roughly proportional to the problem you're trying to address with the governmental connection that you've made. And you've heard from myself and from the staff that the two issues here are, of course, the impacts of the operation. It's a legitimate governmental action for you to take to try to address impacts. That's what special use permits do. So that's your legitimate governmental connection. And the choices that council made and the additional conditions imposed on the SUP are, in my judgment, proportional to the size of the problem. The conditions you placed were to address the increased noise as a result of the operation. Certainly, people can argue about that, and district court judges might see it differently, but that was the basis for the council's action after the rather long hearing that you took. But I wanted to give you sort of the short course on the statute, because it's maybe not a statute you've seen before, but it's not new or unique. These case law provisions are true whether or not there's a statute. They guide the kind of parameters of how cities and counties should act when they engage in land use regulation. So in any event, based upon all of that, the staff and I continue to recommend and do recommend that you not make a change to the decision you made on June the 8th in the written findings. There is a proposed form of motion that indicates you will not be making this change, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We have nobody signed up from the public to speak, so do we have questions for council?
Mayor.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Dahl, just for the purpose of a what if council was not to support this motion tonight, what would happen next?
Well, if you don't support the motion that's presented, you would need to take some alternate motion, because what's been asked is, under the statute, please respond within 30 days, and we're within the 30 days of June 16th. Please say whether you will change your action, modify it in some way, or reverse it. So if the kind of the obverse or the opposite of the recommended motion would be a motion to alter the conditions that were placed on the SUP. And if that were the case, probably I'd ask that motion say direct staff to prepare, proposed alterations to the conditions as established in the June 8th findings and bring those back for your review. You could do it on the spot, I suppose, and say, move to reverse the decision of the council and apply no new conditions to the Lakeside Auto Wash SUP, and then you will have done it just tonight.
So the reason we are looking at this motion tonight is to legally reinforce the previous decision we made.
Yes, the statute says once a decision's made, the property owner has 30 days to give you 30 days to give you a notice. The property owner doesn't give you a notice. They don't give you a notice, and you don't have to do anything. But if they give you a notice and you hang in the pocket, then that triggers a 60-day period during which they can bring suit under the statute to challenge the action that you have taken.
So basically, we're saying that the action we took a month ago, we stand by it, and nothing has changed, and go ahead.
That is the staff's recommendation, yes. Right. And I expect that it's likely that they will bring the suit under the regulatory impairment of property rights statute, and that's why I spent a few minutes telling you that's fine, but the standards under that statute are the ones I described. A reasonable governmental purpose, you're not off the wall in some way, and roughly proportional to the size of the thing that you're trying to fix. So that's what that litigation is about.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Councilor Martell, may I have a motion, please?
The council action form. I'm looking for that.
I move that the decision of the City Council with respect to the Lakeside Auto Wash special use permit imposing additional conditions upon said permit as approved on May 18, 2026, and confirmed by written findings and decisions of June 8, 2026 be sustained, and that the additional conditions placed on the special use permit be enforced.
We have a second by Councilor Ohm. Do we have discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Okay. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we bring Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen back in now?
Yes.
And while we do that, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is City Manager's Matters.
I have nothing else this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney's Matters.
Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Elected Officials Matters, and we will start with Councilor Wood.
Very good. I have a few things I want to bring up. First of all, we held a community meeting, a District 3 meeting, as part of Engage Wheat Ridge Month last week at the Rec Center for District 3, and it was well attended, and that was really it was really great to see that. I think we had 26 people that signed in. That may mean there were still a few more that actually didn't, but we also had great support from staff at Wheat Ridge, for sure. Kent Kesselman attended, Benny Pays attended, Alex Rose attended, and they provided great information to those that came, which was really nice. Mayor Stites was there. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen was there, and we were really appreciative of that. We did have some difficult questions to answer, but that's why we have the meetings, is that we are able to get feedback on what people think and understand that and connect accordingly. So I was really, thank you to all who attended, and yeah, we have another one coming up on July 25th. and at Color Strand Elementary at 9 in the morning, and we hope we'll have a good crowd there as well. I also, because I always report on the 21st Century Road to Housing Act at the federal level, it passed this week, finally. So, or maybe it was a couple of days ago, but it had 10 days after being offered up, and it wasn't vetoed, so it automatically passed, and that's something that's great for municipalities. And then the other thing that I did want to bring up, I want to say thank you to Dan Kukas for attending and giving public comment earlier in the evening. Councilmember Quinn and I have met with him and have heard from him often. Hopefully we will find some ways to address some of his concerns. And nothing happens fast, and this probably won't either. But we do appreciate having heard and understand what those concerns are, because that gives us those opportunities going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Quinn.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Susan, for covering for me. I want to apologize to the community for not being able to attend our meeting. I had a personal emergency, and I appreciate the love and support from my co-counselors while I tried to deal with that. Friday was at the memorial for Dominic. Very touching, very moving. I won't touch much on it. I'm sure everyone else will speak on it, but it was a wonderful memorial to his life and what he means to this community. Saturday was at the Coffee with the Mayor. Was a great discussion. I won't take Corey's thunder for that. And also spent Thursday afternoon with the mayor and the mayor pro tem walking down Clear Creek, which, as Mayor Pro Tem pointed out, it's a very touching and healing. It's a good place to go when you're in a bad spot, and I appreciate her for that. Thank you for the police force that while we were at Coffee with the Mayor, we watched about a dozen people donate to our Wheat Ridge City Fund, I hope, in the future. First, maybe they'll slow down. At the Coffee with the Mayor, we heard some folks talk about some issues in their neighborhoods, one being 32nd east of the high school in that little S-curve. I think we ought to look at perhaps some traffic calming measures in that area in the not so distant future, so that nice lady can keep her trees and those other folks can keep a fence for more than 6 months. Again, I'd like to thank Dan for coming forth and talking to Susan and I about some issues he has, and he came and brought those with us, or to us tonight. Ironically, the thing that I voted against, I would like to ask if we can see what perhaps in the future we can do with maybe some signage that he brought to our attention that is a little vague, maybe. Anyhow, but that's it. That's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Martell.
Thank you, Mayor. I too was able to attend Dominic's service on Friday, and I'll just add that it was a beautiful, beautiful morning and celebration, and a reminder of why Wheat Ridge is special. That's all I'll say about that. I do want to thank District 1 folks who came out to our first Engage Wheat Ridge event. We held that this last week at the Active Adult Center. So we got to show off one of the facilities in our district, and we also had attendees make hygiene kits for our homeless navigators to have on hand, and they also shared with some of the police cruisers so that we have hygiene kits to give out to people in need as they're doing calls in the community. We had a couple community members come and get started on that early, and they finished it in about 12 minutes. So our activity we thought we'd do for a couple hours was like done, but we think we had about 50 kits. And also a reminder that Councilmember Snell and I are not having our standard office hours this month because of all of the great Engage events around the city, but they will resume next month. I was able to attend an event at Happiness Gardens last week. There was an event through the Parks and Recreation Fund Active Adult Center where some of the active adults came over in their little bus and did a garden tour and a craft event at the gardens. So we got to show off the gardens and hear stories and just spend a morning with some of the folks from the Active Adult Center, which was lovely. And I think that's a new partnership. So there's another Active Adult Center event, I think in September, where they'll come back to the garden and do a watercolor class. So that's kind of a cool opportunity that's coming up. And lastly, I'd like to mention one activity that's happening over at Clear Creek Makerspace. The Makerspace is right in the middle of a 6-week program called Math and Make, where 17 high school students from around the city were nominated to participate in this program. And for 6 weeks, they are at the Makerspace 5 days a week. And from 9 to noon in the morning, they're being taught math. And from 1 to 5 in the afternoon, they're actually using that math in our Fab Lab, in the wood shop, and in the metal shop. And they're learning how to use tools. They're applying the math skills that they learned in the morning. So they're actually hedging that question of what am I going to use algebra for? When am I going to ever use this in the real world? And they're also learning tools and trades and some of the craft skills. So I'm honored to be an instructor with that program. I'm going to be teaching them welding next week, so look out. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. I wanted to further talk a little bit about our District 1 Engage Wheat Ridge events. We have one scheduled for tomorrow, and just this afternoon we found out we need to do a slight time change for that. We've already notified our communications department, but I wanted to announce that our happy hour event that is taking place at West 29th Restaurant is happening from 5 to 7, not 4 to 6. There will be reminders sent out, and that will be on social media as well. But tomorrow, come to West 29th, 5 to 7. If you come to West 29th at 4, they have a great parking lot, and you could hang out. So tomorrow, 5 to 7 at West 29th. And then I just also wanted to mention our upcoming events. We've got a coffee event next Tuesday, the 21st at Hayward Park. Where at that event, we will be offering tours of the police department from Alex Rose as graciously offered to take lead tours of that. And then that Friday, the 24th, we are having a creative evening at Sweet Ridge Studios. And we will also have a representative from our police department there as well. And there will be a craft and some summer treats. And then that following Sunday, the 26th, is our final event. We will be having a community cookout at the park by the Richards Hart Estate, and we'll host some of our Parks and Rec staff to talk about Anderson Pool and also give tours of the Richards Hart Estate. So please join us for any of those. I also wanted to just a couple of other things. I wanted to give another shout out and thanks to Councilor Okada for stepping into the role of council liaison for the IDEA committee. We will see lots of great things for a long time from him, and so thank you for that. I also want to mention our Parks and Rec department. Tonight, we got to see just how awesome they are, and I'm happy to celebrate Parks and Rec month. But I just think we have the best Parks and Rec department around, and our facilities are second to none. I also was happy to attend Coffee with the Mayor. I haven't gotten to be at a lot of those because I frequently work my other job on Saturday, but I got to work my other job on Saturday at Coffee with the Mayor, and got to serve coffee and lemonade to folks and also be able to hear that discussion. So glad to be there. And then one thing totally different but really important. It's really hot these days, and I've seen a lot of folks. We got to walk our dogs, but please try to remember to walk your dogs when it is not so hot outside. It's beautiful in the morning. Starting at about 6 o'clock is a great time, but I'm realizing that after about 8 a.m., it's just too hot. And so please just be aware of, when you're walking your dog. I've seen a lot of folks out in the middle of the day, and they're running a lot hotter than we are. So just be aware of that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gatta.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I want to say thank you all for the kind words. That in support and encouragement is gonna fuel me for months, and certainly into tomorrow's IDEA committee meeting, which will be my first, and I'm really looking forward to being there with you, Jenny. Thank you also to the residents that have attended the Engage Wheat Ridge event so far. There's been quite a bit of engagement, even yesterday in some pretty unbelievable heat. We had some great neighbors come out near Miller and Ridge that shared some good thoughts and concerns with us. One thought that I was having with as they were talking about some of the difficulty that we were having along Ridge Road outside of the parallel is the considerations of a loading zone outside the parallel, because we often have a lot of cars parked out there. Definitely some great feedback and something that I'm going to be exploring a bit further. I do want to acknowledge Dom's celebration of life. That was absolutely stunning. The outpouring, how many people were there, the incredible and moving speakers, including Mayor Stites. It was amazing that we were able to have the best speakers of our community give such a dedication to Dom, and it really showed us a lot about Wheat Ridge. It showed us a lot about Dom. So just beautiful, and I felt so privileged to be there. And lastly, I also want to acknowledge the value of disagreements. I do this a little bit, maybe too often, but I do deeply believe that true believers in diversity, true people who study and understand the benefits of diversity, really understand too that it includes the diversity of thought. So the fact that we had a not clean sweep on the equity audit that we had earlier, I think was a tiny bit poetic in the idea that the differences that we have as a council and the different places that we come from is an incredibly important piece of how we operate. So, it might seem a bit strange, especially for anybody who's hearing me say this for the first time, but thank you for the disagreement. Thank you for the diversity of thought and our ability to be able to talk through this stuff and come to better conclusions with the wisdom of the group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And first off, I did hear earlier from a constituent in District 4 who first off said she agreed with my column in the July Gazette. Second, she asked that somebody go have a look at the Lutheran Legacy campus. Some of the fence area, there's some weeds growing, and it isn't a very good look. So if somebody could have a look at that and maybe ask the contractor to trim the weeds back a little bit. We got some sad news today that popular night spot in restaurant on 44th, T-Birds, is closing, and they put the announcement up today. I did have an opportunity to take some personal time off just for 4th of July, and we returned on Saturday. We were in the visiting friends and just being a tourist in South Carolina and Georgia and northern Florida, and we think it's hot here, but that is some special hot down there. But a most enjoyable time. Got to see a lot of really important history. And today is also National Gruntled Workers Day, which encourages people to find meaning and purpose and gratitude in their daily work, appreciate their colleagues, and consider positive changes. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to attend the funeral for Dom, and I just want to say a special thanks to Tad from Stuyvesant Crate. He gave a really great, thoughtful speech. It was very personal. It was very concise, and it was just an amazing job about he shared some of those experiences. And then I also attended the reception, and everybody shares grief differently, through time. And some hits people fast, some it takes slower, and just because somebody doesn't show grief right away doesn't mean that they're not. And I was able to chat with quite a few people on that day. I want to thank the family, for inviting us. That was amazing. And just to see the outpouring of community, I want to thank Mayor Stites for dedicating an award to Dom. I really think a lot of that really says a lot. It says a lot about you and a lot about our community, and elevating that. And then on a happier note, on T-Birds, for better or for worse, I've attended the old one once, And then I've attended the new one once, and I guess now it's going, so I don't know if I'll get invited to the third one. And then I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen that we had our district meeting. A lot of thought went into, trying to communicate all these different ideas of what we want and voting, and it just, seemed like a great, protocol for how we want to look and vote of what people want, and a lot of good discussions with people. A lot of people did not live in Wheat Ridge, which I found really interesting. I know it was hot out and it's July, but that says a lot. And there were people that were on their bikes from Lakewood that found their way over from Youngfield to the park. And so we're really creating something special in Wheat Ridge. We have a really strong community, really supportive community. And, on city council, like Councilmember Okada, said, we have a lot of diverse ideas, diverse thoughts, and we have some really constructive discussions. And I find that, in the neighborhoods as well. And I'm really appreciative of that. I never want to lose sight that, we're able to have different discussions. We may not always agree on everything, but always, it's been very, very civil. And I really want to thank everybody on council for that, and having, those types of discussions says a lot about us and a lot about our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you. I got a couple things. First of all, I was able to join many of you at Dom's memorial service on the green. And again, just want to recognize Mayor States did a beautiful job of acknowledging not just a community champion, but a lifelong friend of his. My one comment is if you went to that and if you didn't know Dom, you would have known him by the end of it. It was just a really beautiful, comprehensive capturing of a unique person in our community who is missed every day. I walk into a lot of rooms and I feel a little squeeze in my heart because expect him to be there and he's not. I had there are so many delightful things to Wheat Ridge, but one of the things I appreciate in my district in particular is AAA propane. There is nothing nicer than not having to go swap out propane tanks at King Soopers, and rather pulling up and having 3 people jump over to your car, grab your propane tank, fill it up. And I've gotten to know them over the years. I don't grill that much, but and they know I'm on city council, and just always such great engaged conversation and a reminder of why talking to our business owners is so valuable. They were talking quite a bit about sort of their deep partnership with the police department. Their location gives them high visibility to kind of a highly traffic, a lot of stuff going on 44th and Wadsworth, and they just spoke really highly of both the city, but in particular the police department's response and sort of relationship building with them. And it was really portrayed as a delightful partnership, even though sometimes it was instigated by things that were less than awesome that was happening. So really good time at AAA Propane, and I highly recommend if you got a tank, go over there, get it filled. They give you a punch card and eventually you'll get a free tank. Then Mayor and I hosted our first of 4 Thursday walks at the Clear Creek last Thursday. And we had a small but fiery and passionate group of people. And it was such a nice way to engage in conversations with people while you're moving through the Clear Creek, which is one of our gems. And we really learned some, I think, pretty interesting and I think actionable input on some of our constituents' experience on the Clear Creek. So I appreciate that, and I hope we have 3 more ahead of us. So 7:30 on Thursdays at the Youngfield Trailhead. The mayor and I are inviting other VIPs to join us, so you might be surprised to see someone else there when you arrive. And then, as Councilmember mentioned, we had our first Hotter Than Heck Engage Wheat Ridge on Saturday. Mayor's much smarter than us going in the morning. We had popsicles, though, and I'll tell you what, you want to get someone's attention when it's 95 degrees, give them a popsicle. And we had a fun interactive activity for people to vote with chits on, like, if there was one thing they wanted to see happen, and then they had a couple more chits. But it really allowed them to ask good questions, even though we talked to a handful of people who don't necessarily live here, but they're spending money here, they're recreating here, and they live in communities faced with a lot of the same challenges. So we're looking forward to our next two, which are going to be in the morning. Oh, no, actually tomorrow we're riding bikes at the Green, also going to be hotter than heck. But at 5:30, we're meeting in the Green, and we have a fun little 6-mile sort of Discover District 2, what's coming up in District 2 loop, and then we'll end at Little Brazil with some drink specials and appetizers. So please join us on your bike, and then we'll be in at Happiness Gardens on Saturday from 9 to 11 with coffee and a little cooler weather, and then the following Saturday we'll be at Hopper Hollow Park also from 9 to 11. So please come see us. And then the last thing, something that the mayor and I have talked about is just really developing sort of a discipline across council of talking about if you are a liaison on a commission or board, or whether it's regional or local, to just provide like a bullet point or two of what's being discussed. It's important information. Those conversations are valuable and important, and sometimes it's hard to go chase down agendas and minutes and stuff like that. So moving forward, the mayor is going to encourage during our elected officials matters for you to just provide a couple updates from whatever you're liaisoning to. I am the vice chair of the Jefferson Transportation Advisory and Advocacy Group, and we meet quarterly. We met this last week and got a sneak peek to the county's Vision Zero plan, which will be coming to us in August, to learn a little bit more about that. And then we did get a couple of updates, including RTD is embarking on a pretty comprehensive operations analysis, and their baseline assumption is a 20% reduction in service across the district. That could look different in different places, but just to give you the heads up that that's probably a conversation we'll be having in 2027, what that looks like. But it'll be important for us to stay engaged to make sure that some of the lines we just invested heavily in and fought for stay on the docket. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen just beat me to it, but if you're a liaison to one of the boards and commissions or anything, please let us know once a month kind of what's going on in those. I spoke to the city manager Goff, who's agreed to have the staff liaisons also send council agendas and minutes from those meetings as well, so that we'll all be a little bit more updated. We haven't seen each other here in chambers for a while. A couple weeks ago, Councilor Larson and I had the opportunity to go to El Arca Plaza on 38th Avenue, where Moonrise Garden used to be at 38th and Quay, to do the ribbon cutting there. Exceptional food, Colombian food, empanadas were amazing. So stop in over there. And they've got, I know they had the soccer games going over the last couple of weeks, and a bunch of cool stuff. Very fun family, and they're looking to be very engaged in Wheat Ridge, so we're excited to have them. Speaking of engage Wheat Ridge, it was a big week last week, and I want to thank Parks and Rec for our big kickoff on July 2nd as well. That was a very successful event, and The Sandlot looked like it was queuing up to be a great movie, and everybody was having a lot of fun for that. So thank you to all the counselors and everybody who was there for that, and all the community that was out for that. That was a really big night. I was at the District 3 meeting the other night. That was definitely, we had some discussion. Some vibrant discussion. I'll say that. It was really interesting to hear from people. I think no matter what neighborhood I've heard from over the last couple weeks, speed is a big issue, I think, for everybody. So please slow down a little bit. In fact, as Mayor Pro Tem Holteen and I were walking with our group the other day, one of the big concerns that they brought up was speed out on the trails. Mr. Goff, and I was hoping Parks and Rec or the police might still be here, but are we doing any enforcement, proactive or anything on the trails as far as off-leash dogs, speed for the bikes, that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely off-leash dogs. I'm not sure how much enforcement we're doing for speeding, but we do have resources for our officers that actually have e-bikes, and they are down on trails. So I can talk to the chief to maybe do some more enforcement on speeding as well.
I think just after being down there for an hour the other day, it was pretty evident that we need to do a little bit more enforcement down there. It's fairly dangerous for a lot of people, I think, including some of the cyclists that are down there and dealing with dogs and other speeding bicyclists, things like that. Coffee with the Mayor on Saturday, it wasn't our biggest group we've ever had. It was a little warm. Thank you to all the counselors who were there, Counselor Quinn, Counselor Martell, Counselor Okada. Thank you guys all for being there, and Counselor Snell for providing coffee and lemonade for everybody. Everybody really enjoyed it, so thank you very much. And we had donuts from Wind Chills, and great discussion. I've been toting around the little Lutheran boards in my car all week and showing everybody, and everybody who's seen them and has had the opportunity to ask questions, for the most part, is very excited about that. And you know, as we're talking about it and talking about sales tax and all that stuff, when you hear from Councilor Ohm that at their district meeting the other day, there were several people there at the park from outside of Wheat Ridge. That's very helpful to know as well, that we have a lot of people visiting this community and spending money here, and they're going to help us get to where we want to go with our facilities and with our roads and stuff like that. So I think it's really important that we continue to move that process forward, and those discussions have been very productive so far. So I'm looking forward to our Thursday walk this week on Clear Creek Trail. We'll be Youngfield at 7:30, and then I will be here 6:30 next Monday for City Council 101. So for people who have never been to City Council, or people who have been here and don't understand how all the processes for signing in for public comment, how the interaction works for our study sessions, for our meetings, we had a little bit of conversation about that at the District 3 meeting, that people said, well, I come and I don't get to interact with my counselors, and that's not really the purpose of these meetings, but we have several other meetings where we really want to have those. So so hopefully people will be here for 101 on the 20th at 6:30. I'll also roping some staff members into giving behind the scenes tours of both the police station and City Hall as well, so people can see the facilities that we're working with here, and how we're able to give such great service to our community, maybe with not the greatest facilities in the world to do that. And then lastly, I want to mention the celebration of life, and I think it was definitely a celebration. While there was a lot of tears for Dom and tears for this community on Friday, I think everybody left feeling that he lived his life for a man, and I think it was said that for a man who only lived to be about 40, 41, he lived a good 80 or 90 years worth of friendships and relationships and service to this community and to the greater community. So thank you to Dominic's family for sharing him and then sharing that personal time with this community, because I think as they probably found out, he had about 500 best friends there that were really happy to be there and talk about him. So thank you to the members of the chamber and the community who put that on, and to his family, and to our Parks and Rec department, who again both put on a fantastic kickoff to our Engage Wheat Ridge, but also was instrumental in Friday being a very big success for everybody. And the green is again showing out to be an asset to this community that is second to none. We will adjourn to a special study session here in about 10 minutes. So counselors, will ask that you be in your seats at 9:10 so we can start right then. And for everybody else, we'll get started on that in a few minutes, and then we will be back not next week, but the following week for our next meeting. Thank you. I'd like to call to order the special study session for July 13th, 2026. We have one agenda item tonight, which is the 38th Avenue West project update. We have nobody signed up to speak either in person or online, so we will go ahead and go right to our staff presentation.
Just to give a little background, so this is our 38th Avenue West project update. Prior action in 21, we moved this priority project forward. In 2022, we began the study. In 2023, we awarded the contract to Ayers. In 2025, we awarded the main contract to Ayers. And just last April, or this last April, we did an amendment to the Ayers contract. So tonight, Nathan is here and he's going to go through the update of the 60% plans and where we're at. And then after that, we'll be able to have a discussion on the XL undergrounding costs and discussion items. And at the end of your memo, there's some actionable items that we're looking for consensus on. So with that, Nathan with Ayers and Associates is here to begin the presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity. And I have to say, this is it's nice to, you guys are a great group, and this has been a delightful project to work on. And I believe and I hope that it's still got as much community and, council support as it did when we were going through the study. All right, so as Kent mentioned, we are in 60% design. We are very close to, we actually have a 60% status set that we're doing internal review with right now, and we will be submitting that through the community development review process at the end of the month, hopefully. And at this stage of design, we're really finalizing major design elements. Several of those are listed, as well as getting into some really minute details. We're finalizing the project footprint. We're refining and finalizing the right-of-way impacts. This has been a great project. It's not common that we get to do this kind of project with real minimal right-of-way impact. This project does have right-of-way impact, but we've worked really diligently to minimize it. We're refining the utility conflicts and lighting layout. We're identifying construction phases. We're identifying special details and needs. We're not actually doing those yet, but figuring out what we need. And then, of course, we're always looking at the cost estimates. So all along, we've had a cost estimate, and early on in a project, contingencies are very, very large compared to construction pay items. And as we move through the design, we shift those costs up. I call it above the line, where we're actually calculating quantities of construction items and then appropriately reducing contingencies. So the idea tonight is to walk through the actual design page by page. I'm happy to go through it all and then open to questions, or feel free to ask questions if you've got. But the idea is to just highlight some of the elements that we've been focusing on and that are part of the project, and then I'll hit milestones coming up for the schedule, and then where our cost estimate is at, and then I'll open it to questions. But feel free, if you've got questions on a slide, feel free. So this is the west end of the project at Youngfield. This area is the first two blocks are minimal impact. So this is largely just striping changes. We'll do a mill and overlay, likely, not because the pavement needs it, but just because it gives the whole project a nice clean look. You'll see here, there's very little sidewalk changes. We started at the study phase with kind of a strict threshold for sidewalks, where if it did not meet ADA, we were going to change it. That brought us to a kind of a weird position where we were going to have this whole corridor project, and we were going to have elements of sidewalk that technically met ADA, but were not anywhere near as nice as the 6-foot sidewalk we had everywhere else. So there have been some minor shifts, like where we're adding sidewalk and where we're not, but we are still trying to keep as much sidewalk and curb and gutter as possible. but largely these first 2 blocks are just mill and overlay striping and sidewalk improvements. You do start to see at the intersection some bump outs. That was a really nice comment made by community development at 30%. About half the intersections we had bump outs. What that does is it gives more room for the ADA ramp, and it reduces that crosswalk length, which makes the crossing safer for pedestrians and cyclists who are using the sidewalk. And there's a lot of intersections on this corridor, so it really helps bring some consistency visually. This is in the Color Strand area. You can see that the roadway widens, and we're maintaining that. Although all of the striping on this exhibit is black, it makes it a little hard to distinguish the bike lanes, but there are bike lanes all the way and sidewalk all the way from one end of the corridor to the other. So as a refresher, one of the main goals of this project was to provide bicycle and pedestrian accommodations on a corridor that had very significant gaps in sidewalk and no bicycle facilities at all. So we are maintaining this.
I'm sorry, could I just jump in real quick and help me understand? On the drawings, the yellow dots indicate what?
Sorry, that is new lighting. So the other element that was brought up was it's a very dark corridor. And so we initially laid out kind of a typical lighting plan. One of the goals of the project all along has been to maintain the relative character of the corridor right now, and it's not well lit. So we've really spent some time balancing, improving the lighting conditions, but not overlighting it. We don't want this to look like an urban corridor because that's not the context of this particular corridor. So a lot of this lighting, you'll see slight differences in the symbology. Some of those are solid yellow circles, and some of them are half circles. I believe the solid are overhead street lights, and the half are more your pedestrian scale, like lantern style lights that are focused on the sidewalk and not on the street. So you'll have 2 different types of lighting. The idea is to mimic the lighting that already exists at the east and west end of the project and in the center project where there's a newer development. And you'll see those are a combination of overhead and pedestrian scale.
And then the other illustrative parts here where you've got driveways, are those cuts into the driveways and the streets, or is that something else?
That's correct. So initially during the study phase, we proposed or we envisioned a type of driveway where the sidewalk depresses, goes across the driveway at street level, and then comes back up. One of the comments from community development is 30%. At 30% was we prefer the other type where the sidewalk stays 6 inches above the street, and in that case you move it away from the street, and that gap between the street and the sidewalk is the ramp. And it's a standard detail, so sometimes you'll see little blocks behind the sidewalk at those driveways. That's where we're finishing the tie-in from sidewalk grade to existing grade.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Moving through, you see there are some driveways that are going to be more impacted than others. This is a function of the grade. It's pretty flat out there. In this particular case, on the south side, you see some of those driveways improvements extending further onto the private property than other driveways. And that's largely a function, in this case, of the street. The existing street is very flat, and it doesn't drain properly. So to correct that drainage, it's changing the existing grades behind the sidewalk, and so we're having to chase that grade a little bit further. These will all be constructed with temporary easements. They don't physically change anything that exists today. It just repaves it and there will be some grading tie-ins at some of these driveways. And that'll all be communicated and coordinated with the individual property owners for all of those individual driveways.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yes, please.
I hope this isn't improper. you were talking about having conversations with the property owners, and I can imagine that this would be maybe sometimes a conversation that's not that easy to have. Have those conversations begun yet, or?
Not formally. So
Okay.
on field walks that we've had, I have personally spoken with a couple of property owners and just had an open conversation about the project and listened to them. This is right about the 60% design where I mentioned in that first slide, we're really trying to finalize the right-of-way footprint. And by right-of-way, I mean any kind of impact that we have, temporary easement, right-of-way acquisition, whatever. So this is really where we will start after 60% design, formally identifying. We've already identified all the property owners and their addresses, and we will be sending notices that this project is coming. And there will probably be 3 different versions of a notice. One is for people who we expect to have right-of-way acquisitions from, one for people that we're having minimal to no impact to, and then kind of a middle ground where we have fairly significant construction impacts to their driveway, but we're not acquiring any property from them. We just need a temporary easement during construction to perform the work. But that's coming up this fall.
Great, thank you.
Yep. At the intersections, you'll see that most of the improvements are related to the sidewalk and the ramps and the crossings. This, obviously, part of the project is to bring all of the intersections up to current ADA code, which was actually just very recently updated in ProWag. So that was a fun little scramble we had this spring. As we approach Tabor, the existing roadway out there is actually, according to our traffic study, wider than it needs to be. The turn lanes, and we call them auxiliary lanes. On the north side, there's an acceleration lane coming out of the neighborhood. Traffic does actually not warrant all of that pavement. So part of this project is to reduce the pavement footprint, and which actually, ironically, brings up some questions about what do we do with that big gap between the sidewalk, which we want to leave in place, and the street. And so again, at 60% design, we're really starting to look at what the city wants to do, what Public Works wants to do with that area. It's likely, since a lot of those properties on the south side have rock mulch landscaping and vegetation, we'll probably do something like that. But this is where coordination and communication with Public Works and community development, they'll help guide what that looks like. You start to see there on the right side of the screen at the Tabor roundabout implementation, the green shapes is bioswales or water quality. So these are minor elements that we heard was something that the community wanted and city council supported. We did look at, in this area where we were really shrinking the footprint of the pavement, we actually looked at putting a big island down the middle, a median island that would be a bioswale. That ended up being way more engineering effort than the minimal water quality benefit it would have provided. So we scaled it back, and we're much closer to kind of what we started with at the concept phase, which is some big pockets at these intersections where we've got the water is already draining to the outside curb. Let's use those spots. So these have not been designed yet, but we've looked at it close enough that we can get water to them, and they should be able to work when we design them. Go ahead.
Thank you. Are the angled 45s, are those specifically for bikes?
Yes, and I want to point out that those are bike ramps from the. So we do have a transition. We've got 2 consulting firms on this project. One is did the traffic study, is doing a handful of the engineering designs, and one of the parts that they're responsible for is the roundabout. So we're not going to skip striping from that point to the roundabout. There's a round of iterations right here at 60% where we're combining our design files. One of the things that they don't do until the roundabout pavement and curb lines are set is they don't spend time final designing those ramps and the sidewalk tie-ins. So this is not going to be the final version. But yes, those dark gray 45 angles are where the bike lane, which you see on the exterior there, that striping will continue up to those ramps, and it's highly likely that the curb will bump in and provide a very obvious, very clear bike ramp off the pavement up onto the wider sidewalk. And the sidewalks go from 6 feet to 10 feet in these areas to accommodate additional users. You can see lighting, significantly more lighting here. This is one of the important intersections that we took a safety perspective on at the lighting. Yes.
Thank you. I've got a sort of just a point I'd like to make, and if I can solve this throughout the city, I'd be a happy person on a bike. Wheat Ridge has a couple of issues with its traffic patterns and street alignments, but we have a lot of places, like is demonstrated here, where Swadley doesn't align with a corresponding. There's a lot of like T intersections. So when you're riding your bike, so let's just say I was going west in the bike lane, and if I wanted to turn left into Swadley, when I've got a hard curb next to me, I can't get the right angle to actually be able to turn left without actually going into traffic. I don't know how to explain this, but in places where there's a curb cut, I can get up on the sidewalk and angle my bike, so I'm able to make that left turn. This is a huge issue on 44th where I live, where the streets don't align, and when I want to turn left into my neighborhood, there's only one place I can do it, because otherwise I'm having to figure out how to angle my bike to make the turn, and I can't actually position it and do that. So if possible, on any of like the key places where that turning movement is really restricted for a bike, if it's possible to put either like a slight inset, because all I need to do is just get a little bit out of traffic, but when the bike lane is that close to the traffic, there's
Almost like a bike box.
yeah, not even quite that big, but just enough space so the bicyclist, I say me because I do it all the time, but like can get a little bit of an angle to make that turn. We just have so many places where the streets don't align. Where there is a driveway, it's totally no problem. But there's just a couple places on the corridor where this comes in. But I just wanted to flag that as a movement restriction.
That's an excellent observation and comment. Thank you. I don't think there's anything new on this. The red boxes are RTD bus stops. All of the bus stops will be improved so that instead of what's out there today, there will be an RTD standard concrete pad with a bench and a trash can. There are 4 shelters out there currently that we envision reinstalling. We are not proposing any new bus shelters, simply resetting the ones that are out there today. Yes.
Were we able to get the bus stop on 38th and Ward moved to the other side of the street? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, because
That was brought up
a couple years
couple
ago.
of years ago.
Yeah.
I think we talked to RTD about it. I don't know if it ever happens. They're very particular on when and how they move them. So I don't know if that happened. We can take a look at it during this process.
Because there's that one that's right in front of that house.
Yeah.
And if we could move it across the way, it'd be in front of a church that's basically empty.
Yeah.
So
We'll note that and check on it.
thank you.
That does bring up a good point that we've coordinated all of these bus stops with RTD because we're implementing some 3 roundabouts. That puts some unusual constraints on where the buses need to stop either before or after. So several of the bus stops will move 100, 200 feet, but largely they're in the same general vicinity that they exist today in the same number that exists today. So there's not going to be any decrease of service or stops. We've also been coordinating with RTD on phasing and staging construction, and they know that this project is coming, and coordination during construction will be an important part of the construction. Nothing much to mention here. On the south side there, largely the design of the project is to have attached sidewalks where there's no gap between the curb and the sidewalk. It's just right up along the curb. That was to minimize footprint and minimize right-of-way impact. In this area on the south, there are a number of driveways all very close together. So instead of having the sidewalk jump back and forth, which is, if you've ever seen a 6-year-old ride a bicycle, that's a disaster waiting to happen. So thinking of families out with their children, we didn't want that kind of meandering sidewalk. So in this case, we just put a separated sidewalk all the way across there so that it's a straight shot. That is not designed specifically to be, landscape or a buffer of any kind. It's not a design element. It was simply for consistency. I don't think there's any different design features on this page. This is the main roundabout. So this is at Parfet. And this is where the 3 private properties and then the park are all impacted with right-of-way acquisitions. Excuse me. We have worked to minimize those. We're at a point where we can't, it's expensive to change any of the roundabout design at this point. So we've done what we can to minimize the footprint in the 3 private corners and push as much of that onto the park property. Not that we want to impact the park, but I think we'd prefer to impact a city-owned parcel than privately owned parcels. Another really good comment at 30% from community development was, can we separate the sidewalk across Louise Turner Park? And that actually provided a handful of benefits. So, excuse me, we've done that across the park. And that's going to allow us to use that whole area as another water quality bioswale. Again, those ramps down to this is probably a better illustration, that ramp down to the bike lane on the south side. The rest of them will look a little bit more like that, moving towards 90%. I did want to point out that all of the roundabouts on this project have splitter islands, which are a really important design feature to calm speeds and serve as median pedestrian refuge for people crossing the road.
Can we go back on that real quick? At our District 3 meeting the other day, we had a group of people that were very worried about the children's safety crossing the street going to Prospect Valley. Is this the safest design, or is there a more safe design?
So the quick answer is study after study show single lane roundabouts in particular are safer for pedestrians and bicycles than a standard intersection.
Can you say that again? Because I'm not sure that everybody heard it.
Yeah. Study after study has shown that a single lane roundabout is safer for pedestrians and bicycles than a standard intersection. That obviously a multi-lane roundabout increases the complexity of vehicle movements. Multi-lane roundabouts significantly lengthen the crossing distance for a pedestrian. So we only have single lane roundabouts on this project. And a caveat to that blanket statement is that it depends on the quality of the design of the roundabout. So Sufficiently wide splitter islands are really important to provide that median refuge area. And then you'll see that the crosswalks, now there's, you can see the ramps on the sidewalk. The actual crosswalk striping is not shown on this sheet. Those are actually further back from the intersection than a standard intersection. That's very specifically so that you position the pedestrians at a point in the road where the driver is only looking straight ahead. They are not yet to the point where they are looking around to navigate what other traffic in the intersection is doing. There's a full car space between the crosswalk and the entry to the roundabout where cars can stop, pass the crosswalk, only paying attention to pedestrians, and then stop or yield to have a zone to judge what traffic is doing and find a gap in the roundabout. So it's separating the decision points and the movements, which is one of the reasons that single lane roundabouts are safer than a standard roundabout.
Thank you.
And I do have some material I can provide it to Kent if any council members or constituents are interested in that. Yes.
Thank you. I have a question on the roundabout. So thanks for explaining the data and the studies on that. I'm a huge fan of the roundabout that's at 24th and Pierce Street for Lundberg Elementary and Jefferson, because it's really addressing using a traffic circle and roundabout with high pedestrian and high vulnerable pedestrian usage. It's really well designed to manage both people and bikes and cars, but they've got the elevated crosswalks as part of the design there that slows the cars in the roundabout as they're coming in and out. So I just want to name, not something I think is needed on all three of them, but I think for this one in particular, since it serves Prospect Valley, if that's not been considered, I think it would be really helpful. And just the treatment there of the getting the bikes off the street and onto the multi-trail accommodation around the outskirts of it are just, it's like the chef's kiss of roundabouts and near schools. So I just wanted to name that.
I appreciate that, and I like those features too, and we'll work with Public Works. I know that snow removal is always an issue when you've got elevated or raised crosswalks. So that's a balance, but we would definitely look into that. At this point, we don't have raised crosswalks proposed, but that does remind me, with heavy pedestrian traffic running one direction and crossing the road, this is a really good candidate location for additional enhancements like RFBs, rapid flashing beacons. You have to be really careful. We don't want to put a hawk at a roundabout because then you're implementing kind of conflicting controls. But the yellow flashing beacons are a really, really nice enhancement at a roundabout.
I will just say I heard it also snows in Edgewater, so I think they have addressed snow removal there.
Okay, that's good. I want to talk about that with Public Works. So.
Yeah, just following up with what Nate had said again, we even spoke this afternoon, and I'm glad that he mentioned the rapid flashing beacons. When we do replace the hawk signals or the rapid flashing beacons on 44th, we'll have a surplus of those, and so those could be maybe repurposed as part of this project. But again, even at that district meeting, we heard that the focus around Prospect School here was a concern. So as we move along in final design, we'll be robust in our efforts to make sure that this is a quality, safe intersection.
If you look at when we're looking at 38th and Parfet and the roundabout going in there, if you go to the southwest corner, there's an apartment building there, and their access driveway onto Parfet, the way it stands now, the distance from the driveway to the intersection doesn't seem that serious, but as you widen out for the traffic circle, is there a concern that driveway on Parfet into the apartment building, is that too close to the intersection?
So I wish we had our roundabout designers here to technically answer that question. And I think we're at the point in the design where we're going to start looking at those. I don't want to call it a minor detail because it's a significant detail, but that can be worked with. But that I actually, as I was going through this, I identified that they didn't show that driveway even the way we show the other driveways. And I assure everyone who happens to see this that we are not closing, that driveway. But if it is too close, we will make sure that we relocate it in coordination with the apartment complex.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
I was just looking at the proximity of the West Metro Fire Station, and I assume that conversations have probably been had with them, and that distance from the roundabout works for them.
It does work for them, and it works for operations. And we've had 2 meetings with the Fire Protection District to talk about this project, both the permanent impacts and construction phasing. So we actually have input from them on minimum lane widths during construction and movement restrictions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I did want to point out, I want to point out the parking lot in this sheet, and I want to highlight the new orientation of parking, and then I'm going to skip ahead a couple sheets because we have a similar parking lot. We can talk about all of them. I don't think there's anything here. And then as we get to Moore and Miller Street, so Miller Street is our third roundabout. We have had conversations with the Cambridge Park HOA, 2 meetings with them about the impacts to their driveway or their access. Curb to curb will stay the same as it is right now, but because the way the movements in the roundabout, entering and exiting the roundabout have to work, we have to move their island, which they're not terribly happy about, but that will be a project expense. The HOA is not going to be responsible for any of that work or any of that expense. And when we're done, it will look very similar to the way it looks right now. And then the parking lot's there. So the Subi recycler on the left at Moore Street and Prospect Valley Hospitality in the center of this the screen. For the Subi recycler, largely the proposed parking lot layout is roughly mimics the way they use it today. For the one on the prior sheet and for Prospect Valley Hospitality, it's a significant change from what's there today. So it's not necessarily natural. The way they park right now, you can see users or customers just pull in at an angle, which works all right now because there's no sidewalk and there's no pedestrians. But we really don't want that kind of reversing out. Number one, reversing out into traffic is something we really try to avoid. Number two, reversing out into traffic across a pedestrian route is something we really don't want to do. So we developed this concept during the study phase that maintains, they don't have parking, they don't have individual spots striped out there, but it looks like 8 to 9 parking or cars could theoretically park there if everyone parked perfectly. So we maintain 8 parking spots. For the business, we did design it so that planter that's out there today doesn't have to be impacted. And I've been in contact with the current representative for that business a couple of times, and she has seen this design, and she was happy to hear that they don't have to move their sign or it's not going to get destroyed or removed. So we worked a lot with this business owner to maintain what they have today. I did want to point out that to provide that, we shifted the entire alignment to the north, and it almost fits within the right-of-way, but across that, I believe it's Orchard Park, we will have to replace some of that asphalt sidewalk with or asphalt parking lot repurposed to the sidewalk. And so that will be either an acquisition or a permanent easement all the way across that property. And it's like, I think we needed between 6 inches and 9 inches to get the sidewalk in. So it's going to be probably a 2-foot acquisition across the entire property. But I did want to point that out as an additional impact. Again, we're still working on final design of the geometrics of the roundabout there. You'll see all the roundabouts look a little bit different. They all have a little bit different scenarios, entrances and exits, different volumes from the side roads. Those are all go into the calculation of what the geometrics are. And then we get to near Kipling in this last block. We're not proposing to touch anything on that last block between Lee Street and Kipling, except for the sidewalk, that gap that's missing right now. You'll see in this aerial that area that's being developed on the north side is now complete. We've actually just surveyed that completed project, and so that new sidewalk line work will be coming into our design files. And that's the end of the corridor. So in terms of a schedule, this is the Gantt chart with critical path, which is a lot there, but really what we're looking at is, I mentioned, plan submittal in late July. We have developed right-of-way impacts. We don't have formal plans yet, so we're developing the actual plan sheets. That'll be around that 60% timeframe. We'll start developing construction specifications this fall. The current schedule shows 90% plans and construction specifications in November, with final right-of-way plans shortly thereafter. With final 100% construction plans and specs in late January. And the intent is to go through all of those things at the bottom and get out to construction next summer. And that's going to depend a lot on the next segment of this study session. So I'd caveat anything kind of after November by what happens with the utilities. And then the big question is, what do our costs look like? So I should have looked up I think this project has come before council twice. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but the annual escalation you have pegged as 3%, that seems kind of low.
So we can play with that number any way you want or Public Works wants with city manager. I'm not a financial guy. I don't watch the markets. I think I had heard 3 to 4% annual cost of living inflations. I mean, during the pandemic, it was crazy, especially in the construction market. It's backed off from then. So we can put anything in here. The goal is to be accurate. So I appreciate the comment. I'm not dismissing your comment. I want to use an escalation factor that's accurate.
Typically between the Denver Boulder Index is usually between 3 and 4%. So we're being a little conservative here with 3%, but as Nathan mentioned, we're moving that stuff from the contingency into the quantities, and as we refine those, there's a big part here that we need to go through, which is full depth reconstruction versus mill and overlay, which will have a significant impact on the cost. So right now we're being conservative with more full depth reconstruction, specifically around those rotary areas, because we want those to be lasting for a long, long time. And then trying to minimize, there's going to be some trenching for the additional stormwater pipe that we're putting in. Right now, we're being conservative, again, showing half-width road, full reconstruction, where we think that maybe we can do a trench. One of the things that we think could be a benefit to this project, again, depending on the next conversation, would be treating this kind of like a CMAR project, getting a contractor on board at this point or very soon, so that we can get the engineering analysis from them and the benefit of cost and their value engineering from what they see from construction. And we think that we could also save some significant costs if we get a contractor on board early.
The other thing I would add to that is it's at this point in the design from 60 to 90% where we really start honing in on those costs. And the goal is to keep the project. We have a lot of levers at our disposal, and the goal is to keep it in the range that we initially came to you with 2 years ago. And a good example of that is just that, looking through the corridor with the fine-tooth comb and figuring out where we can do mill and overlay to reduce pavement. That's one example. And that's the end of my slides. Yes?
I just want to make a quick comment. When, before I was on council, when this was being looked at by previous council, and it was not even this scope of a project, it was principally a drainage project that was going to address some pedestrian stuff. And at that time, it was a $18 million. Yeah, so I just want to name that, like, the design approach and engineering on this project's actually been incredibly dialed in, like, considering that over a decade ago it was about an equivalent cost just to address the drainage. I'm really excited to see where this, because I remember for 10 years thinking this was never going to happen because it was going to be a $50 million project. So I just wanted to share that back history.
Thank you. I hope that's good. I hope that means that smaller project was exceptionally conservative, and that we're highly accurate. We try to be highly accurate with our costs.
Do you have more questions about this piece, or do you want us to go into the Excel pricing for undergrounding that we got?
Council, do you have more questions about the design before we go?
And you can have more later too, of course, but.
Just one, Nathan, have we, Susan tipped on talking to the fire departments and emergency services, because it's kind of a big thoroughfare now for going to Lutheran. Also, our RTD's cool with the rotaries, and I'm sure there's some magical number that they have, the curb heights and whatnot, because Susan and I get that all the time from because we live there and that's our constituents, and they're always, the kids are going to get run over going across the street, as Corey indicated, and then we always hear about emergency services, snow removal, and all that good stuff. So just got to throw that out there.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be a lot more coming my way in a minute.
I would respond by saying the finished product is going to work well for both RTD and the fire department, and they're both on board. Construction is going to be difficult for everybody, and we're working with both of them amongst many other stakeholders to figure out the best way to, at least initially, develop phasing. You may or may not know that a lot of that is then up to the contractor to figure out how to do, and we kind of put guardrails on, well, these are your minimums, and this is what you have to have available, and leave it to the contractor, because that's what they do every day.
And the rotaries will have mountable curbs. So, again, with those big vehicles, if they are bringing a ladder truck down there, they can roll right through it. Again, we'll be looking at our sign placement. So again, you don't want to put the sign right at the end of the circle of the rotary, otherwise you'll lose it. So again, we'll be strategic with all those details as we move again from 60 to 90.
Okay. Any other questions before we get into Excel?
Let's get to the fun part.
Okay, Kent.
Pat, go. No. No. Yeah, it's pretty simple. So we've been working with Excel for 2 years. Nate Ayers and Associates, obviously, or not obviously, but they also were part of the initial study that, was looking into what do the residents and constituents want in this area. And I believe Nate said today in our meeting, overwhelmingly, they wanted the undergrounding of the utilities. So for the last, 2 years, specifically probably about a year and a quarter, we've really been working closely with Excel, Pat and his team, Cameron and Tyler, to dial this in. We've had, I don't know how many site walks, at least half a dozen, plans and back and forth. Most recently, Excel had, we finished the plans in conjunction with Nate and Ayers and their comments back and forth, line work, making sure that everything lined up. Excel brought out 3 contractors, which is their requirement. Those 3 contractors did a site walk and provided 3 bids in 2 weeks. They accepted the low bid. We have not seen that low bid, but we were provided the number, and the number was $9.8 million. So that is the total cost for undergrounding the utilities from Kipling to Youngfield. And in the memo, we do have the 1% that could be used for this. We have about 1.3 million in there currently, and we could run that up to about 3 million. So again, reducing the cost down from 9.8 to 6.8. And then I think, what you've heard over the last year, I think even before me, was the cost of underground was around 7. We were hopeful through this process that would not be the case, but it is a very complicated project, as we've learned through this entire process. It's not just the utilities run down the north side or the south side. They run down the north side, cross over to the south side, back over to it's just crisscross applesauce through the entire corridor. There's poles in the middle of sidewalks currently, just all kinds of obstacles. But this is what they've come back with, and if moved forward, then the next step would be get with Excel again, work with that 1%, bring the contract or bring a contract or IGA, I'm not sure which one, but then, get Excel and their contractor on board, and then Pat could probably say, because I don't know again, when that contractor would be able to begin work.
And can't speak to the estimated time frame they gave us?
Yeah, the original estimate was 40 weeks. So again, if there may be information on the bid that they received that timeline could be shorter or it could be longer, we aren't privy to that information. But again, in an ideal world, we would, let's just say in August, approve the work for the undergrounding. And then Nate provided the schedule that the plans would be done at the end of the year. Sometime before the end of the year, Excel would get to work. And if it was in fact 40 weeks of duration of the project, we would be hopeful that after 20 weeks, they would be, halfway through. And then we would be able to, again, if we get our contractor on board early, we would be able to double down and jump right in behind that work and begin the construction to ease the construction fatigue throughout the corridor.
And just to add to that a little bit, Mr. Dahl reminded me before he left, our franchise with Excel Energy requires that for any city project, if their utilities need to be moved, they move it on their dime. But that's from pole to pole. That's not underground. We did fight with them pretty heavily numerous years ago on another project for that exact same situation. And I think Dahl believes that our franchise says that they should cover the underground expense as well, but they fight pretty hard and won't do that. So they are required to move their utilities, but only from pole to pole, not underground.
And just to follow up on that point, again, for the last, say, 2 years, or specifically 1.5 years, all the focus has been on the undergrounding of the utilities. So if undergrounding is not a choice to move forward, then we will need to go back with Excel and again, Ayers and coordinate what, in fact, utilities must be moved as part of the project, which will, that November date of having 100% plans or ready to bid would change.
Let's go Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Yeah, and just, Patrick, can you clarify what you mean, move pole to pole? So like,
I'm sorry, yeah.
to, like Kent was just saying, like, if there are currently, if we decide not to expend the additional funds for undergrounding and there's poles right now that would be in the middle of the sidewalks, like, that's your interpretation, is that Excel would be obligated to move them out of the way?
Yes.
And, okay.
Yep. And yeah, just move the pole and put the lines back on. That's,
A new pole just a little bit over
yeah,
here?
they're
Okay.
required to do that at their expense.
Okay.
Yep.
How did we get poles in the middle of the sidewalk at the Applewood Shopping Center then?
Oh, that was moved eventually. Applewood Shopping Center?
Yeah.
How did we get them moved?
No, okay, so they're gone now.
Yeah,
right?
they were. Yeah,
Okay,
that was a temporary. Yep.
got it, okay. Councilor Okada.
This is admittedly naive. I'm sure that there's expert reasons for this, but that pole-to-pole solution with the zigzagging that we have across the corridor, could that solution help us get into a place where there's less zigzagging? And I guess that's the question.
Yeah, again, the final undergrounding plans, that's something that Excel has, but, everything goes underground. So again, if there's a storm and, in a current condition, a storm may knock down a line and everybody's out of power. When the power is underground, that doesn't happen. But yeah, the zigzagging,
They could redesign it.
yeah, they could,
potentially.
they're going to have
That's-
to look
we'd
at
have
it.
to find- we'd
And,
have
and
to
could
look
there
at
be
it.
a half solution? Is there something that, an option that we haven't discussed really? Is there some that could be underground and some that could stay up? Again, those are different options, and that isn't what we've worked towards based on the input from the survey in the beginning and what we heard, when I first got here of what we wanted to do with this corridor. But again, we didn't know the price. Now that we know the price, we can refresh this entire thing. Again, just know that whatever we do different from with Excel will delay our design.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just hypothetical, but if we did go to a Plan B, vertical above ground, is there extra cost if we want to do some type of enhancement of, like a safety feature during high winds where they isolate lines? Kind of a newer technology. And
Yeah.
if you don't have an answer, that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that would be a question for, Excel. Again, they're required per the franchise agreement, if the pole's like, again, in the example in the sidewalk, to move the pole, they're not required to upgrade said pole. And so if we wanted upgrades or additional features, then I would, again, we would talk to Excel and see what kind of, if there was a cost associated with that.
Thank you.
Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And first off, from what I've seen, and I've gone through a couple of windstorms where trees have taken down above ground power lines. So burying the lines underground is preferred. Builds resiliency and it allows it's just a better way to if we have the opportunity to underground the lines, we should take it. The question I have, though, is when we talk about the 1%, does that mean that the 1% that could have gone to undergrounding some lines somewhere else will not be available?
Correct. And that the numbers that Kent mentioned, up to 3 million, that means we'd be borrowing ahead for 3 years as well. They allow us to do that. So we have currently in our 1% fund, just so everybody understands, we don't have the money. It's in Excel's budget. It's allocated for Wheat Ridge, and it's about 1.6, and then we can borrow ahead up to 3 years. We get about 300,000 to 400,000 a year towards the 1% fund. So that would be the 3 million. So if we use that 3 million, yeah, we would be out of 1% for several years for any other project.
So then that it does, it raises the question. There are, I'm sure, other areas within the city of Wheat Ridge that would greatly benefit from undergrounding wires in whatever the situation is, but when a decision is made, if we're going to apply the 1%, then we need to be prepared to think about alternative for some other areas. And I know Excel has really stepped up and done a lot in terms of replacing older poles, distribution poles that are, way past their prime. And I certainly appreciate the investment they're making in that, but these are still above ground lines. And there are parts of our city where the lines really should be undergrounded. And what we're saying is that if we approve this, we're going to defer the other
for
projects.
several years, correct. The good news is city's code requires that most private developments of a certain size are required to underground their utilities, so it wouldn't stop undergrounding of utilities throughout the city.
Those are paid for by the developer.
No, they are. Yeah, it wouldn't be city funds, but so it's still happening throughout the community.
It's just, again, just that deferring work that could be done now in areas where it's needed for this project. And just so long as we're aware of what we're getting into.
Yeah, and I not to combat the situation, but usually, the 1% fund is used for larger corridor projects. It's not like you would pick a block and say, we're going to underground this block on let's use 32nd to 35th on Wads, for example. We didn't, those utilities aren't being undergrounded as part of that project, which was a CDOT project on Wads. So, just kind of that 3-block stretch isn't something that, we would really use those funds for. So as we project forward and look at our bigger plan, of, potentially upgrading 44th or 38th Main Street, could be an option or something like that. But you are in fact correct that, yes, if we use these funds now, we won't have them for a while.
So, and just to wrap it up from my point of view, I think we should apply as much as is available to take the power lines that run down 38th and underground the entire thing. I would support that direction.
I would also mention, just as another option, we don't have to use the 1%. I mean, you can use part of the 1%. You can say, okay, well, we want to apply to the 9.8 million. We would like to apply the 1.3 we currently have. We don't want to borrow ahead because, again, if we contribute $300,000 to $400,000 a year, then in 3 years we have the $1.3 million again. So again, these are all just kind of scenario or options, and again, we can look at all of those things as we move forward.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
Thank you. I think, this is hard. We're out talking to our community about how to fund a lot of things. And this was not something that was in our budget. I think if we had come in with like a $6 or $7 million number, I think we'd be talking about a margin that would be a little bit easier to bend towards. And I think the thing I'm finding myself thinking about, I fully support applying the funds that we have in the bank now and maximizing what we can leverage against. Historically, that's kind of how the city has used these funds. And there's a lot of legislative sessions ahead of us, and this type of resiliency is really important at the state legislative level. So it could be that there's funds out there in the future. Who knows what the next couple of years are going to look like. So I'm really comfortable taking a 3-year banking of what Excel offers for this. It dawns on me after having gone through the segment by segment walkthrough tonight that there's some pretty distinct segments of the corridor, and certainly as it gets to the eastern portion, the tree canopy changes, like the street width changes, like it kind of has a slightly different feel to it. So if I were to just have my own private magic wand and not a council that I get to share the dais with, I'm interested in using the $3 million that's on the table and maybe looking at matching that with the city and seeing what $6 million can get us, and take a look at, like, is that eastern portion of the corridor maybe treated a little bit differently? It's going to be subject, I think, to more redevelopment. There's just different opportunities. I've walked it and ridden my bike that corridor a gazillion times, but I did it once just to look at the utility poles, and they are like wackadoodle. Let me mansplain how wackadoodle it is to you. A lot of this is just these laterals that go into the densely arbored neighborhoods that are sort of in that like middle section of the corridor. I think that's where there's like a huge density. I'm guessing nobody's seen this, but the complexity of reallocating the utilities through there and undergrounding them are not unique to the corridor. They have a lot of these lateral tie-ins, and those conditions just don't exist on the eastern portion. So one option that like wouldn't make me feel like we're squeezing so much when we're also trying to replace the pool, and we've got schoolyards we're trying to once in a lifetime, pick up, is I'd be interested in looking at sort of a third option, which is taking what we have, leveraging a little bit of our funding, because we do have some 2J funds maybe we can squish around in there, but maybe taking a look at the corridor and seeing where do we really have this distinct need and opportunity, where that treatment is most needed, and future undergrounding could take place with less disruption and is less threatened by like the windstorms and stuff like that because of the tree canopy.
Any other questions? Councilor Wood.
I think I have more a comment than a question. I appreciate what Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen has said about working with what we have and trying to figure out maybe it helps to spread the peanut butter a little bit better elsewhere. The one, and I'm not necessarily a negative on that, but the one caveat to that, and I'd love to hear maybe some comment on it, is that the cost to underground will only get more expensive. And there's uncertainty of when maybe additional private development would come in and take care of the remaining portion of it. So to me, that's the only consideration there, or the only thing that maybe doesn't seem to fall in place with the scenario that Mayor Pro Tem described. It's just something to think about. I don't know if there are any thoughts on that or not as far as cost for the future, but maybe I'll throw it out there.
I'll say it's true. Yeah. Costs will increase for sure.
Well, I guess I'll ask, is Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen's idea, is that a possibility to be able to kind of find some places to underground and some
It
places?
certainly is. I'll mention, we've spent 1.5 years with them just working on this portion of it. So a construction in June of 2027, beginning with 38th West, is highly unlikely if we go back to Excel and have them rework whatever section we look at. Could that be expedited a little bit because we already have the plans? Certainly. But this has been a bird dog process from the moment I got here, and it doesn't move fast. So
It could though, in this situation, as Kent mentioned, I think they have the design done, conceptual design for the whole corridor. Maybe we can check with them, how easy is it for them to turn around just doing this section, right? Is that a whole other year? Is that 6 months? Is that 2 months? Sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to look at you. It's not your responsibility. But yeah, it takes time to get through agencies like Excel, but I think we should ask that question because I think it's worth looking at. But just keep in mind that it may change the schedule a little bit, but hopefully not a lot. Yes.
Well, it's tough for me to not chime in on my day job to do something like that. I personally, in my opinion, both professionally and here, I don't think we'd gain anything because the entire main line on the corridor is what we're undergrounding, and then all those little taps that go off like you talked about. So to leave a piece out, we'd still have to go back overhead and still have a main line that we have to do. And then we're talking about moving the poles on the XL nickel to the edge of the right of way, the new right of way, or wherever it's at. And honestly, we wouldn't be gaining anything. I don't believe. I'm not a proponent for XL on this, but I don't think we'll gain anything by leaving a little piece overhead.
Well, it won't decrease the cost though, down to a
I don't
$6
know
million
if it
number?
will
No.
change it because we have to run
It's gonna add
the
cost
main line
otherwise.
through there that will, then we'll have to go back overhead.
Yeah.
And
the
so
point.
it's kind of, it can be done and
Yeah.
we can do that. I mean, XL can do that.
What do you think the timing would be on, sorry, it's on, to look at that on,
Something to look at that would be,
it's not re-signing too much, is it?
it is and it isn't.
Oh, okay.
I
All
mean,
right.
it's,
Yeah.
because all them little silly taps and the way we have, this area is a very unique.
Yeah, it is.
Old area and it's kind of tough, which is why it took me forever to do it.
We'll go back to Mayor Pro Tem Holton.
So thank you for talking through that. Maybe less enthusiastic than I was a minute ago, but I am curious, where does the money come from? If we
If we do it all?
Yeah, if we say we want to do this and
Yeah.
we've got a $6.8 million shortfall to make it happen.
Yeah.
From what we've budgeted, where would we draw the funds from?
Yeah, so we estimated about $20 million for the construction of this project, so we do have that allocated in 2J budget. We don't have any of the 9 million, so we either try to decrease the $20 million, $21 million budget somewhat to help cover it, or we have to go back and look at the 2J projects and determine what's going to get cut. So what's in 2J is the other corridor projects, the 38th Avenue refresh. We actually, I think 32nd is a project in there that we had from Wads to Kipling. That could be something that we look at, maybe not funding. There's a little bit of stormwater. We're not using much of the 2J for stormwater, about 6 million of it. We've spent probably 3 million maybe of that already. What else? The sidewalk gap program, of course, is another 20, 30 million of the 75 million. So it would have to come from those projects.
Okay. I guess this is unsatisfactory, but I sort of feel like I'm in support of either we do it or we don't. Any halfway fantasies I had walking in this room have been thoroughly quashed. Thanks, Pat. But I also sort of feel like we're being asked to be made a decision without really knowing where those funds would come from.
Yeah, that could come back.
And so I guess I'm interested in supporting it, but I would be more comfortable making a consensus decision when we know where those funds would come from and what it would impact, because we've made a lot of other decisions. So I guess personally, and I'd like to hear from my colleagues, if we're going to support it, I'd like to know what's not happening because we're doing this, in part because 2J funds were for safe corridors and
Multiple things, yep.
Yeah. So we've programmed a lot of those dollars, and if it's pulling away those programming, I think we'd want to know what we're pulling it from. So I don't know. We could probably get that back here pretty quickly to take a look at that.
No, it's a very fair request, and probably should have had that this evening, but we really wanted to have this discussion first to see if you move forward, and we can do that exercise fairly quickly and come back with the full kind of project list based on the ballot question and what we anticipate spending on the rest of the projects. Yep.
Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a question about the 2J funding and kind of like the ballot language that we had on that.
Yep.
I've in my engagement with the community, I've tried to go back and look at the ballot language several times, and it's surprisingly difficult to find. But the would undergrounding and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but would the 9 point something million undergrounding be within the expectations of the 2J? Probably legally on paper, but also as a council, do we think that our constituents would agree that that's what they they felt like they voted for?
I believe so, personally. It was, yeah, fairly general corridor improvements. Corridor improvements, in my mind, could include undergrounding. So, yeah, it wasn't specified, spelled out, but corridor improvements is kind of corner, sidewalk to sidewalk, or well, even further than that, right away to right away, and any improvements within that. And I think that's fair. I don't think anybody would have any concerns with that. I don't believe, and that rest of you are nodding kind of.
I deeply agree with that, especially because like going back to the language and seeing corridor improvements as a piece of it, that does feel right in line with me. And I think anything beyond that would be in a place of assumption. I don't know if my co-counselor for District 4 was intending this, but one of the things that I heard that kind of piqued my ears was 44th as a corridor too. Not that I don't want to make it seem like district versus district, and like 38th gets everything and 44 doesn't, which is not true. But if I can send a paper airplane into the future, I would send it with a small piece of writing that says, "Don't forget about 44th."
And we do have some improvements already underway on 44th and Tabor, specifically with traffic pedestrian improvements there. But you're right, 44th, I think, might have been listed in the ballot language actually as one of the corridors to look at. So,
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Councilor Ohm. Thank you, Mayor. First, I support Mayor Pro Tem's comments about trying to find where the money's going to come from. I definitely think that, and I've advocated for this before, is that we need our primary corridors, whether it's 38th, 44th, these are the ones that we really need to focus on as far as trying to make them, kind of all-weather proof. The question I have is, does the city have any type of, I guess I'd call it like a, 30,000 elevation view of the entire city, and like these are the areas that are the priority corridors for undergrounding? So that's part one of my question. The second one is, how does that tie into the new hospital? Like, is that something that is, I don't know where they're drawing their energy from, but just as I'm just thinking about the big picture infrastructure of, where do we connect? Is it, we just gonna, if we were looking out, 30, 40 years in the future, and, is this, we just do a portion of 38th, and then the plan is we extend that from, Kipling to Wadsworth. Is there have we ever done that kind of a plan? Is that
we
just
don't.
too pie in the sky?
Yeah, no, it's not pie in the sky. It probably should be something we should do. I think we've relied on development as it occurred and focused on those areas. As an example, the Applewood Shopping Center, our biggest sales tax generator, or it used to be, was an important area, and we spent probably 3 or 4 years worth of Fixel 1% funds to underground the lines around that center. Those were requested at some of the businesses there that were coming in, Hacienda, Colorado, who unfortunately is no longer open, but they had a nice rooftop, right? And they didn't want the power lines. And so it was kind of, as development came, was the Discovery Park. When that project went in, we undergrounded those lines around that park. So it's kind of project by project, but I think we probably should have a bigger, especially if we want to fund. The Excel 1% fund's never going to fund a plan very quickly. But if the city ever wanted to put more funding towards it in our capital budget, I think we'd want a plan to talk about how we're going to use those dollars.
I think it would be helpful for developers too. Just trying to mesh that up with the other.
And it's required for most private development of a certain size. So,
okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
So I think of what I've heard is to come back with a budget basically for 2J on how we could fit this within the budget with the numbers we got received tonight, and what impact that would have on other projects.
I think that's the consensus.
Otherwise, there was consensus. Okay, everybody's okay with the direction of at 60% design. That everybody's thumbs up on that.
Okay. Yes, we have consensus on that as well. Hand raise, show of hands.
Yeah, that's all we need really. Yeah. Any other consensus direction you guys would like from council on anything? Good.
Okay, okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Goff, from you? Okay. Counselors, anything else before we adjourn for the evening? Counselor Ohm.
I have one request, just amongst us, is that future study session on voting, all things voting, just, talking with Jeffco about maybe voter suppression. Not this, but just future study session support for that.
Do we have, does Counselor Ohm have support?
Yeah. I have some concerns over voting come November, and I'd like to have some support to get together. I'm kind of eating it. Here we go. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. I would like support to have a future study session with Jeffco on voter protections for mainly for this fall. Yep.
We have support for that? Yeah. Okay. We have
Thank you.
a lot of support for that. Okay. Anybody else want to bring anything before council before we adjourn for the evening? All right, seeing nobody else, remember, if you can find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.